War is a terrible time. Hunger, constant explosions and the noise of blades hitting each other, blood and corpses of the killed everywhere, a huge number of those who fell for justice. It is impossible to describe war completely. It contains millions of mixed feelings. Madara is now standing in the form of Susanoo with swords, a bow and a shield. Team number 7 is already at the limit of their capabilities. Uchiha decides to attack his friends, but with what exactly is still unknown, since he is making seals, and a lot of them and at great speed. While he was doing this, Haruno ran up to him and with the last of her strength hit Susanoo, but it did not help much. The girl with shock in her eyes lost consciousness. The seals are broken. Madara decides to go the other way, so he shoots as many as 4 arrows from his bow. Kakashi and Sasuke immediately react to this and use Kamui, moving the arrows to another dimension. Hitaki and Uchiha drop out of the game, overexerting themselves. Madara also runs out of chakra and, breathing heavily, stops using Susanoo, noisily falling to his knees and leaning on them. Naruto had a chance. Kurama, he shouted, from which this cry was heard in his mind and awakened the strongest and most ferocious of all the tailed beasts, the 9-tailed. Got it, he replied. Now Naruto began to exit the Rakuto mode and gradually enter the Biju mode. Finally, a huge fox made of golden chakra appeared in front of Madara. Uzumaki, being in the head of Kurama's demonic chakra, put his hands in front of him and created a tailed beast bomb. Madara's eyes began to widen, as he realized that if he did not start acting, then he was finished. Therefore, the Uchiha folded the seals and said, "Secret technique. Kako no Kyoko, memory of the past." After which Naruto became normal. What? The blonde was sincerely surprised and began to disappear. No, Naruto, Kakashi shouted, but at that moment Uzumaki was no longer there. Madara grinned and fell. Damn jutsu. Damn Uzumaki. Damn shinobi. He slowly cursed the name. If it weren't for you, I would have fulfilled my dream, for which I was resurrected. He barely uttered, flying into small pieces. At that time, Sakura came to. What? Where is Madara? And Naruto? Haruno asked her friends, looking around. Kakashi answered with wide open eyes. He just used up his chakra, Hitaki said. Who is he? The pink-haired girl asked. Madara, Sasuke answered, groaning. And what about Naruto? Kakashi and Sasuke exchanged glances. He is in the past, they answered at the same time. In the past. Commentary on the prologue. Well, here is the first part. I liked it, so today I will write the continuation in GT 3. Part 1. Naruto began to open his eyes. The first thing he saw was the ceiling. Then he turned his head and what he saw was a real mess. And he was lying on a bed. The guy assumed a sitting position. Where am I? He asked himself, looking around in bewilderment. A familiar room. The blonde continued to mumble under his breath with a dull look. Stop, he shouted with wide open eyes. This is my old room. I had it before Pain's attack on Konoha. Uzumaki stood up and ran to the window. In it he saw a very familiar village, only in an old form. Then his gaze was directed at the Hokage rock. The first, second, third and fourth Hokage were there, but the fifth, Tsunade, was not there. But now I definitely don't understand anything, Naruto said with a stunned face and ran to the mirror. ITTE. The blonde was even more shocked. What the hell? I'm 13. I don't get it. Wait, I was at war. And I was definitely, 100%, 17. Did I go back in time? Or was I dreaming all this time that I was at war? And that I went with the perverted old man after Granny Tsunade, and then trained for 2 years. And everything that happened after. Naruto was busy. What were Madara's last words? Uzumaki decided to work his gray matter. Kajio, no K. No, that's not it. Kotaro no. Ka. God. The blonde was overcome with grief. But I can say for sure that I've ended up in the past now. A knock on the door. Yes. The door opened and the third entered the room. The third Ho. Naruto wanted to shout, but remembered that there was nothing surprising in this. After all, the third visited Naruto in the past. Something is wrong. Hiruzen was genuinely surprised. Everything is fine. Did you want something? Sarutobi was even more surprised. Addressing me with respect. That's not like you, Naruto. The guy hesitated. Do you want me to address you as you again and call you old man? The third smiled. Perhaps you can call me that. But I will miss the way you called me before. Then I will call you old man, the blonde answered, smiling sweetly. This is the Naruto I like. Hiruzen was happy. How are you? Do you have enough money? Do you have food? Uzumaki ran to the kitchen to the refrigerator. Well, if you don't mind. The old man laughed even harder and put several bills on the nightstand in the guy's room. I think the amount I gave you will be enough for a whole week. Thank you, old man. Uzumaki ran up to Sarutobi and he joined the blue-eyed man to himself, as if hugging him. Contact me if anything happens. With these words the third wanted to leave the room, but remembered something and stopped. Oh, and by the way, today is the genin exam, if you haven't forgotten, the old man reminded him sarcastically and left the guy's apartment. So it all starts with this, Naruto said thoughtfully and directed his gaze to the window. So, children, today, as you already know, you have the genin exam. To become a genin, you must make only one clone of yourself, Iruka explained. And the first one will be Sasuke Uchiha. All the girls began to squeal and shout the brunette's name, wishing him luck. Uchiha made one of his clones and Iruka, nodding approvingly, put a checkmark in the notebook. Perfect clone. You passed the exam, Sasuke. The brunette with a complete lack of any joy on his face went to his desk. Next will be Sakura Haruno. The pink-haired girl also made a clone and received a nod from Iruka. You passed. Woohoo. Did you see that, Sasuke-kun? Uchiha cursed and turned away from everyone. Next, Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde did not immediately understand that he was called. Too much had happened to him, so he was full of questions and he was thinking about how to get out of the situation he found himself in. The guy stood with a thoughtful look. Naruto. Uzumaki blinked with the same look and left the line of those taking the exam, easily making a clone. Everyone was surprised and began to talk. Well, apparently, you only pretended not to listen to me and complained about this. Because your clone is perfect. You passed. When the exam was over, those who passed received leaf ninja protectors. Naruto, with the same thoughtful look, sat on the swing away from everyone. Even after passing the exam, he will still be alone, some of the newly minted genin said among themselves. Yeah, the second agreed. He will never have friends. Uzumaki did not care about their conversations. He knew that everyone said so. Until soon. So, even though I went back to the past, my accumulated skills remained. And Kurama, are we on good terms? Uzumaki thought, and then closed his eyes and found himself in his subconscious. In front of him, without a cage, lay Kyuubi. Kurama, Naruto called out to him. The fox raised one eye. What are you? A pause. Oh my god. No. Better lock me in a cage right away. You're unbearable. The blonde raised an eyebrow in surprise. Did I annoy you so much when I was 13? Yeah, you can't even imagine how much. The nine-tailed grinned maliciously, thinking that all of this, thank God, was behind us. But no, Madara decided to mock him a little more. If you're not in a cage now, then it turns out that I'm on good terms with you. But not at this age, the fox objected. Damn it, you could say that only my soul moved to the past. Well, along with the skills. It's just that I had such a body. Accept it. Kyuubi snorted in response and turned away from the Jinchuriki. Can you at least tell me something? The blue-eyed man couldn't stand it. You already understood everything. We were transported to the past. Madara used a secret and rather ancient technique, Kako no Kyoku. It requires a huge expenditure of chakra. In general, few people know how to use it. Oh, so that's what it's called. I couldn't remember. Do you by any chance know how to interrupt it? It's something like genjutsu. So, you need someone in the future to simply release their chakra flow into mine. Kurama shook his head. Not quite. This is a little different. It can only be cancelled by a shinobi using the technique. But Madara, as you saw, disintegrated into several pieces, having spent too much chakra. Naruto thought. Wait, if he died, then the technique should have dissipated. Right, the fox nodded, but something went wrong. No, it just means that Madara did not die. Uzumaki stared at the demon with intrigued eyes. When Sakura hit him with Susanoo, it turns out he didn't break the seals. It only seemed that way. In truth, he finished them. These seals activated the consciousness transfer technique. Something like those used by the Yamanaka clan, and transferred his soul to another body, and yours to the past. When he collects enough chakra, he will return to his body and who knows what he will do there. I think he transferred you to the past because you were a big threat to him, having my chakra as support. Because of you, I was transferred too. And I'm stuck here with you. This is agony. So that's how it all is. And you saw all this because I used your chakra. The guy smiled guiltily and scratched the back of his head. Madara is unlikely to return me back to my body. Therefore, it should be done by the same Yamanaka, if I understood the essence of the technique correctly. After all, they specialize in transferring consciousness to another body. But this clan has no advantage in the past. Firstly, they won't believe that you're from the future. Secondly, it's better to do everything in the present tense. For us, it's the future, and for the already grown-up Sakura, Sasuke, etc., it's the present. That girl, Ino Yamanaka or someone else from her clan, will have to use the same technique as Madara back then, in the future, but not in the past. Pray that at least one of them knows how to use it. Why not in the past? I explained it to you, idiot. The only problem is that shinobi, except for Madara, in the future are unlikely to think of such a thing. Therefore, you'll have to stay here for a while. If not until the moment when Madara used this technique on you, the blonde swallowed. If you change the natural course of things in the past, they will affect the future. Don't show off too much. You've grown as a shinobi, a lot. I didn't expect to hear that from you, but I'm pleased, the guy smiled. Only, damn it, maybe they'll force Madara to tell everything. Or, will he blurt it out himself? We'll see. Of course you don't care. Naruto got angry. So, get out of here. I've already told you everything. Don't disturb my rest. Almost eternal rest, Uzumaki added on his own and began to disappear, finding himself on the swing again. Part 2. In the morning. Blue eyes opened from the playful sun, and the guy got up. Sleepily yawning and scratching his side, he decided to clean up his apartment a little. It took about an hour. Naruto looked at the time. Phew, I got up early today. There's still a whole hour before the consultation with Kakashi-sensei, plus he's late, Uzumaki thought. His stomach rumbled pitifully. Walking into the kitchen and sitting down at the table, Naruto's eyes immediately fell on the milk. Then it was all because of you. He scolded the drink, remembering unpleasant pictures from the past, when he reincarnated as Sasuke and spent most of the time in the toilet. Exhaling, the blonde poured a glass of plain water and, having made a sandwich, ate it. Naruto washed himself, got dressed and left the apartment, not forgetting to lock the door. Afterwards, he went to Ichiraku Ramen, since Hatake would arrive half an hour after the team arrived. During the consultation, the Jinchuriki entered one of the academy classrooms and the first thing he saw were the irritated faces of Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto, why the hell are you late? Haruno scolded. What's wrong with that? Sensei hasn't arrived yet anyway, the guy answered calmly. Are you taking an example from him? Naruto sat down at the desk and crossed his arms on it, resting his head on them. Calm down, Sakura-chan. I don't take an example from anyone. I got up early this morning and managed to clean up, and then went to Ichiraku. The girl looked at her partner in surprise. And I did all this while you were sitting here waiting for Kakashi, the pink-haired girl snorted in response and turned away from the blonde. You've changed dramatically in just a few days. What's wrong with you, Uzumaki? Sasuke asked. And you're asking me about something. What's wrong with you, Uchiha? The brunette opened his eyes wide, but then his face regained its indifference and answered. And yet, you only seem smart in appearance. Deep down, you're the same idiot you were. Just like you, Naruto quipped, and they both turned away from each other. He was, of course, an asshole, but they still needed to change their attitude towards him, otherwise he'd once again take the path of an Avenger, which was only planned for now. Kakashi Hatake entered the classroom. Sorry, kids, for being late. I saw that the cat couldn't get down from the tree, so I decided to help her. And at the same time we decided to read our book, Uzumaki said, to which the man blushed and, stuttering, asked. Where did you? Naruto pointed at the book sticking out of the weapons bag. Hatake fussed and tried to shove it in there even more, but he was having trouble. Phew, you've exposed me, the gray-haired one said, scratching the back of his head. Naruto, almost without emotion, began. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. My dream is to become Hokage. I like ramen and I don't like Sasuke. The vein on the latter's temple bulged. Likewise, the Uchiha answered, to which Naruto exhaled heavily and smiled slightly. Just kidding, in fact, I don't like giving up. Well, you started the acquaintance on the right note. And gave a good description. Now. You, the blonde interrupted him. Well, I'm Kakashi Hatake. You don't need to know what I like and what I don't like either. I'll keep quiet about that, the blue-eyed boy said. Kakashi blushed again. Now you, the teacher pointed at the girl. Hi, I'm Sakura Haruno. What I love, more precisely, who, the green-eyed girl began, glancing sideways at Sasuke. Hee hee. Sakura clasped her hands together and fidgeted like a restless child, rejoicing. I understand. What don't you love? Naruto. The pink-haired girl blurted out immediately. The boy answered indifferently. I know. The girl was surprised and looked at her friend. What? I know, the blonde repeated, turning his clear blue eyes to the girl. Haruno immediately felt awkward in front of the Jinchuriki. Seeing the tense atmosphere, Hitaki turned to Sasuke. Well, what about you? Sasuke Uchiha, I wouldn't say it's a dream, but I have a goal, to kill a certain person. There's little I like and a lot I don't like, the brunette finished, closing his eyes. It'll be difficult with them. They don't even know the concept of teamwork, the man thought desperately. Well, so, we've met. Tomorrow at 6 in the morning, we'll meet at the 4th training ground. You'll take the exam. No, it won't be like the Genin exam. This one will decide whether you'll stay with me or go back to the academy. Sasuke sat emotionlessly, Naruto grinned, and Sakura swallowed the lump in her throat and clenched her lips. Don't eat anything in the morning. See you soon, the sensei said and disappeared into the haze, after which the blonde stood up and left the classroom. Uchiha and Haruno exchanged glances and also left. The next day, 6 in the morning. A very tired and hungry team stood at the 4th training ground. Sasuke stood with his hands in his pockets, and every time his stomach complained, he frowned and pretended it wasn't him. Naruto stood with his arms crossed behind his head, and also pretended it wasn't him who was rumbling. Even knowing why Kakashi forbade the team from eating breakfast, Naruto still didn't eat anything. It wouldn't be fair to his friends. And Sakura sat on her bag, which she had placed on the ground, and sighed heavily. He's late again, the pink-haired girl said thoughtfully. That's his style, Naruto agreed. We're lucky. He's our sensei now, the brunette added. We already understood, Uzumaki answered. This infuriated Sasuke. Stop being smart. Naruto frowned. It started. You're always being smart. Show off. I'm not a show-off. You can't tell by looking at me. The feeling is mutual. I wanted it to be nice, after all. Moron. Idiot. Blockhead. Stinking nut. Thick-headed dandelion. Shut up. Sakura shouted and threatened Naruto with her fist. And what about me? The girl brought her fist even closer to the blonde's face. Because you started it all. Uzumaki looked angrily at his partner, who was standing and grinning. Me. This pompous turkey is always acting up. What's all the noise, and there's no fight? Well, at least not yet. Kakashi finally arrived. I'd be happy to fight this parrot, the Jinchuriki said in anticipation of the fight. And I'd be happy to fight this rooster, answered Sasuke. The boys stood face to face and tried to push each other. Let's begin. Let's go. No, Hitaki said, coming up and putting his palms on his comrades' heads. Today you'll only be fighting me. The boys looked at their sensei, then at each other and, snorting, turned away. Sasuke hates Naruto. Naruto hates Sasuke, and Sakura hates Naruto. No relationship, the gray-haired boy thought to himself. Well then, Hitaki said and took 2 bells out of his pocket. You must defeat me and take these bells. The main thing is that you don't hold back. But, Kakashi-sensei, there are only 2 bells, Sakura noted. Even through the mask, it was clear that the man smiled. I know, if you don't do it before lunch, the man said, setting the timer on his watch, then you will all return to the academy, and if only 2 of you do it, the third will be tied to a pole, and I will have lunch in front of him. Is everything clear to everyone? The students nodded. Excellent. Then let's get started. The main feature of a ninja is the ability to hide well and be unnoticed. Hide. After these words, the entire team hid in different places. Well done. I can hardly see them. Although, turned back, Sakura is lying in the bushes. Raised his head, Sasuke is in a tree. Nani? Where's Naruto? Kakashi began to spin around and examine almost everything in the area. Sasuke and Sakura began to grin, thinking that he hadn't noticed them. Well, then I'll deal with them first, and then I'll find Naruto, the man thought and immediately found himself behind Sakura. The girl didn't even notice him. Hello, the gray-haired man said. Hello, the girl answered and, realizing that it was Kakashi who said it, screamed at the top of her lungs and lost consciousness. Yeah, I thought it would be more fun. Yeah, Sasuke. Hitaki looked at the branch where the Uchiha was sitting. The boy didn't answer. The Junin sighed sadly and found himself on the same branch as the brunette. Why are you silent? Sasuke cursed and jumped off the branch, then threw a kunai with an explosive seal at it. Explosion. Hitaki stood behind the boy again. Never let the enemy get behind you. The Uchiha turned to face his teacher. A punch, a kick, a turn on the other hand, kicks, pushed off the ground with his hands, stood up. Kakashi only got one bruise, but that made Sasuke happy. The Junin rubbed the bruised spot and made seals, after which the ground shook under the brunette's feet. The Uchiha jumped up and had a Fuma shuriken in his hand, then he used the fire technique and set the weapon on fire. The shuriken flew straight at Kakashi. He folded the seals again. Doden. Stone wall. A wall of stone with images of the heads of dogs that the gray-haired one summons appeared in front of the teacher. The shuriken pierced it and exploded, but Hitaki was not found in the old place. Sasuke looked around in surprise. Suddenly, a hand appeared from under the ground, and it grabbed the boy by the leg, and then dragged him down. Result: Sasuke only has one head visible, and Kakashi is standing in front of him and smirking. Well done, Sasuke. But this is not enough. The Uchiha tried with all his might to get out, but his efforts were of no avail and he exhaled, and then lowered his head. Where is Naruto? The teacher thought. He remembered that they hadn't eaten today, so he ran to the monument to the fallen, where he left his lunch. When he arrived, Kakashi found no one there, which surprised him greatly. Suddenly, someone grabbed his hands from behind. Nani? The man didn't understand and, turning around, saw Naruto. Kakashi wanted to act, but the original appeared in front, shouting. Rasengan. Hitaki's eyes widened, and his pupils shrank and twitched a little. Where? He didn't finish, because Uzumaki was already almost touching him with the technique, so Kakashi bent down to avoid the blow, and kicked the clone from behind, then hit the original's head. He stopped the technique. Naruto, how do you know this technique? The blonde grinned, rubbing his chin. There was an unkind gleam in his eyes. What are you planning? The boy looked at the sky. Hitaki followed his example and was even more shocked. Uzumaki clones with huge Rasengans began to jump from the sky. Barricades of huge Rasengans. The copies shouted. Damn it! The man shouted and, folding the seals, created Raikiri. It won't help, said the Jinchuriki, when suddenly the man turned sharply towards the original and wanted to hit him, but the latter put his hand forward and, gritting his teeth, held the sensei's electrified hand. Kakashi was scared for his student, so he stopped using the technique and Naruto took advantage of this. The clones jumped on the Junin, and the original jumped back, grabbing the bells. There was an explosion. Sakura woke up from the noise, and Sasuke almost got out. Hearing the explosion, both ran to where it came from. Arriving at the monument, the guys fell into culture shock. Kakashi was lying beaten in a huge crater, and Uzumaki was standing next to him and holding the bells with a 32 smile. Naruto, what do you mean by this? Asked Sakura. Understand it like this. I won, the boy answered with a kawaii smile. Here, he said and handed the second bell to the girl. She blushed and took it. Thank you, but, I didn't do anything. Haruno lowered her head guiltily. Consider this my gift. The blonde looked at the Uchiha. His eyes were covered by his hair, but his lips showed that he was furious. Why did you win? You didn't study anything at the academy and didn't train anywhere, so how did you become so strong that you could beat the strongest Jonin in Konoha? The boy roared. Naruto, with complete seriousness on his face, approached his friend and, holding out a bell to him, replied. You are deeply mistaken if you think that I don't train. The Uchiha looked at the outstretched bell with incomprehension for a few seconds, and then knocked it out of the blonde's hands. I don't need your handouts. How did you become so strong in just a few days? The brunette continued. The Uzumaki smiled. Because I want to become Hokage. Ah, as far as you know, the Hokage shouldn't be a weakling. The Hokage's duty is to protect the village and its inhabitants at any cost. Even at the cost of his own life, Naruto replied. A drop of sweat ran down Sasuke's cheek and fell. I trained so much. I worked hard and studied, but the results were few. And you? The Uchiha pointed his finger at his comrade. Some kind of faith in a dream helped you overtake Kakashi in strength. That's the thing, I believe. And if you want to become as strong as him, just stop whining about it and study with us under Kakashi-sensei. What difference does it make how much time passes? Strength won't stop growing. Fuck you, Sasuke shouted and left the training ground. Sakura only looked worriedly after her partner as he left, and then turned her gaze to the blue-eyed man. Naruto, are you telling the truth? The Uzumaki nodded. The pink-haired girl looked at Kakashi, who was trying to get up, but he was having trouble doing it, so he kept falling and, in the end, he exhaled and continued lying down, looking at the students. Kakashi-sensei, we will help you, the girl said and called Naruto with a hand gesture. I won't be able to hide it from them for long. But if I continue to do this, I can cause mischief in the future by changing the past. It's probably better to act like before, recklessly and thoughtlessly. Although, judging by my current character, you can't say that. The genin's stream of thoughts was interrupted by the kunoichi's voice. Don't stand there, Naruto. Come on, help. She was standing in the funnel, holding sensei by the arm, and with the other she wrapped her arm around his waist. Naruto smiled and ran up to them. Forgive me, Kakashi-sensei, the boy awkwardly scratched the back of his head. Hatake smiled. It's okay. I couldn't even imagine that you were so strong. On the contrary, I thought that you wouldn't pass the exam, but... Both looked at the man expectantly. You passed. The guys let go of sensei and shouted, hooray, raising their hands up. And Kakashi was groaning, lying on the ground. Oops. Both said and again picked up the teacher. What about Sasuke? Naruto asked. He passed too. I just scared you with returning to the academy, for your own good. Got it. Naruto, come to me tomorrow morning. I think I'll be in the hospital, so it won't be hard for you to find me. I'll have to have a serious talk with you, the boy swallowed. Did you really understand? Part 3. The next morning. Naruto got up early in the morning and headed to the hospital. On the way, he met Sasuke. Hello, Uzumaki greeted him with a smile on his lips. The Uchiha looked at his partner irritably. Idiot, the brunette replied and went on about his business. The blonde frowned slightly at his friend's harsh words, but looked after him with some regret. With a feeling of guilt. After standing like that for a minute, the boy continued on his way. Entering the Konoha hospital, Naruto approached the reception desk. The first thing he thought was, why are their tables so high? Hello, the blue-eyed man greeted. The woman sitting there began to look around. I'm here, said Uzumaki. Whereas, here, she did not understand. The boy exhaled heavily and raised his hand. Naruto, is that you? Yeah, the blonde answered. Who did you come to visit? Kakashi-sensei. Yeah, so, he's in Ward 201. He just asked me to tell you that he's been waiting for you impatiently, the woman said contentedly. The Jinchuriki drawled with a bit of sarcasm and even got a little nervous. Yes, go to him quickly. For a second, Naruto imagined the angry face of his sensei with sparkling eyes. Of course, I'm running already, the blue-eyed man said with the same sarcasm and went to the 201st ward. Kakashi's Pav. I was lying quietly and reading the pages of the book, Come, Paradise. Oh my god, Jiraiya-sama, you are simply a genius. How many feelings are present in this work? And how many more secrets are yet to be revealed to the main character? I should learn to write like that, but you have no equal. What time is it? Yeah, 9:55. Naruto should be here soon. Hearing a knock on the door, I put my little book aside for a while. Come in, I said, and Naruto entered the room. Finally. Hello, Kakashi-sensei. How are you feeling? He asked me, guiltily scratching the back of his head. Hello, Naruto. Quite fine. Thank you for asking, we were polite. I hope that you already understand why I asked you to come here. Well, I can guess, he answered. Tell me your guess, I asked. Uzumaki folded his hands behind his back and started moving his leg back and forth, as if he was embarrassed about something. Well, it's about, no, still no, let's do it your way, the boy blurted out. Yeah, you're scared then. Well, that's okay, I'll expose you. Okay, Naruto, where did you learn that technique? He pretended not to understand me. What, that technique? The blonde asked hesitantly. That very one, Rasengan. Naruto relaxed for a moment. So you mean this? Then I'll answer. His eyes started darting around the room, and when the boy saw my precious book, he smiled and went to the nightstand, then picked up the book and pointed his finger at the author's name. He taught me. My eyes widened. It can't be Jiraiya-sama himself. I couldn't believe it. Well, yes. When did you manage to meet? Uzumaki became agitated. A long time ago, he answered, stuttering. How long ago? I persisted. Well, a long time ago. It was obvious that he didn't want to answer, so I left him alone. The main thing was that I learned where he learned the Rasengan. I did. Nt care about the rest. Okay, I won't interrogate you. That's all I wanted to ask. Sorry for asking you to come so early. I hope that didn't bother you in any way. No, what are you saying? I can come any time you want. Even at 2 in the morning, the boy answered, smiling contentedly. Okay then, thank you for your kindness and honesty in your answer. You can go, I let my student go with a sweet smile. Thank you, he said, bowing and hurried out of the room. He's out. Hooray. What was the main character up to? He, now we'll find out. End of Kakashi's POV. As Naruto left the room, he pressed his back against the wall and slid down it to the floor, then let out a sigh of relief. Phew, it's good that I didn't continue asking about the technique. In theory, the perverted hermit and I hadn't met yet, so I didn't know what to answer. Kakashi and Jiraiya would be in close contact, and if sensei asked the teacher about me, he would look at Hitaki with eyes like 5 rubles and laugh out loud, and then add that I was some kind of fanatic of his and he didn't know me. But now he's most likely not in the land of fire. I need to see him first, Kakashi-sensei, the blonde thought and went home. On the way, Naruto met Sakura. Hey, Naruto. The boy stopped and looked to the side at Haruno running towards him. Sakura-chan, hello. Hello, phew, the girl rested, leaning her elbows on her knees. Did you want something? The pink-haired girl took a deep breath and answered. The Hokage is calling us. Naruto was a little surprised by this news. Got it, let's go. Yeah, the girl nodded. Having entered the residence, the teammates headed to the second floor. There was a knock on the door. Come in. Having received permission, the guys entered the Hokage's office and immediately saw Sasuke sitting in front of the third's desk. Hello, Sasuke-kun, Sakura babbled happily, to which she received a cold look in response. Haruno was a little upset. Sasuke is an asshole, poor Sakura-chan, but she knows his attitude towards us, so why does she continue to act childishly when she sees him? The blonde thought to himself. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Hokage, Sakura apologized, bowing, after which Naruto repeated her movements. The old man only laughed in response. It's okay. I understand your feelings. Come in, Hiruzen said caringly. I'll ask right away, Naruto, did you spend a lot? Sarutobi asked, slightly hiding his eyes behind his hat. I only bought groceries. Milk, bread, sausage, butter and salt. The third raised an eyebrow in surprise. Hey, and no ramen. That's not like you. Well, there was one yesterday morning, Hiruzen laughed good-naturedly. So, let's get down to business. I'm entrusting you with a D-rank mission. Your temporary leader while Kakashi is in the hospital will be Ebisu. There was another knock on the door. Here he is. Come in. A man of about 25 entered the office. He was wearing blue pants with a bandage at the bottom and a turtleneck of the same color, black round glasses and a bandana on his head with the village symbol. Hello, Mr. Hokage. Excuse me for being late, Ebisu asked, bowing. It's okay. All I said was that you'll have a D-rank mission. And it's to catch a cat named Tora, who belongs to the wife of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, Madame Shijimi. That's it? Naruto asked. I guess, yes. Can I have something more difficult? Hiruzen hid his eyes behind his hat again and smiled. At least complete this mission, and then we'll see, Uzumaki exhaled heavily. If you're not happy with something, you can refuse to complete this mission, but you'll be left with nothing, Uchiha butted in. I forgot to ask you. The Jinchuriki said loudly. And you're right, I forgot. A vein swelled on the blonde's temple. Don't butt into other people's conversations. And who are you to tell me what to do? Certainly not my mommy. And do you want him to be? Uchiha bared his teeth. I'd rather die than have a relative like you. Why did you start a conflict again? We'll never work together as a team this way. And I'm not going to be friends with you, the brunette hissed and, putting his hands in his shorts pockets, left the room, loudly slamming the door. I think I made the wrong choice after all. Naruto and Sasuke are complete opposites, flashed through Sarutobi's mind, pulling his hat down even more over his eyes. Commentary on Part 3. It seems to me that the chapter came out a bit dry. All dialogue and almost no description. I'll try to make the next one wet XD. Part 4. Sasuke. Naruto thought to himself, leaving the office. What's wrong with you? We used to get along better than we do now. Are you unhappy that I'm stronger than you? Most likely. You've already had conflicts with me about this several times. You're unbearable. Sakura walked next to him and looked at her irritated partner with an alarmed expression, clenching one hand into a fist and pressing it to her chest. Naruto, are you okay? The boy came out of his thoughts, shuddering a little and, smiling at the pink-haired girl, replied. Yeah, don't worry, Sakura-chan. Sasuke is just pouting because I was able to beat Sensei, and he couldn't. Soon everything will be normal again, he reassured his partner. The girl exhaled, believing her friend's words. Naruto, said Sakura, drawing his attention to herself. Uzumaki nodded and looked expectantly at Haruno. Can you teach me that technique? The blonde widened his eyes. What technique? Why is everyone bothering me with the rasengan? How do I know it? Then teach me. And anyway, why did Sakura-chan suddenly need to learn this technique? She's a medic. Oh, wait, she's not a medic yet, the boy thought to himself. Well, the one you beat Sensei with, the Jinchuriki's eyes widened again. Exactly. She didn't see what technique I did to him. I'll tell you. I won with the help of clones, he answered. The girl froze in amazement. With the help of clones? She asked, not believing her ears. Yeah, you just need to know how to use them in battle, the genin said, smiling. The green-eyed girl was embarrassed. You have more chakra than me. You can make up to 1,000 or even more. That's what Sensei told me. And with my chakra reserves, I can only make up to 3 clones, she noted sadly. Naruto grinned. You can believe it or not, but with 3 clones you can also give your opponent such a thrashing that he will remember it for the rest of his life, Uzumaki said, grinning. Sakura was surprised. Seriously? Yes, but to create a clone, you need to be able to calculate the time at the moment of attack. That is, when and how many clones to create, as well as how to attack. Haruno listened to her partner with bated breath. She remembered everything he told her. And she firmly decided, she would learn to use clones in battle. Naruto, teach me, please, please, please she begged her teammate. The blonde felt uneasy from such a pleading request, so he agreed, causing the girl to shout, hooray! And jump on Uzumaki with a hug. The boy blushed and almost fell, because the pink-haired girl made her jump without warning, but she was so light that he kept his balance. When shall we start? Haruno asked, calming down a little and letting go of the Jinchuriki. The genin thought about it. Maybe even tomorrow, if you can. Sakura froze for a minute, and then jumped on the boy with new hugs. Really? Thank you so much, Naruto. I am very grateful to you. Please, Sakura-chan. Just, can you let me go? You'll strangle me. The green-eyed girl caught herself and let go of her partner, blushing and cringing. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's nothing, the blonde smiled kawaiily. The girl blushed. Oh okay, I have to go. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, at training ground number 4. Okay, Uzumaki nodded. Bye, said Sakura and ran off. Naruto only looked after her in surprise and, remembering that the third had not given any specific information about the mission, that is, where and what time, shouted. Sakura-chan, wait, but the girl no longer heard him. Okay, I'll wait for Sensei Ebisu, I'll find out everything from him and tell Sakura. And Sasuke too, Uzumaki summed up and stayed to wait for Ebisu. Sakura's pav. Damn, what is this? Why is my face all burning? I, slightly closing my eyes, ran along one of the roads to my house and suddenly I crashed into someone, fell and, opening my eyes, saw who it was. Sensei Kakashi, I asked him in surprise. He raised his index finger to his lips and then disappeared in a puff of smoke. I was shocked by his behavior, but then I stood up and looked around. Not finding any figures that looked like Sensei, I rushed back to the house. Entering the apartment, I greeted my parents and went to the bathroom. There I am standing in front of the mirror and I see that I am all red, and it is not from heat or anger, but from embarrassment. I open the tap with cold water and begin to wash my face thoroughly. Damn, it does not help. Okay, Sakura, you need to calm down and forget about what happened today. Of course, except for the mission we were assigned. Oh, the mission. When and what time is it? Damn, I'll have to run back to the residence. Sakura, my dear, someone has come to see you. My mother informed me. To see me. Who could it be? End of Sakura's pav. Sakura went out into the living room and saw in the front door Ino. She looked at her rival in surprise. Hello, big-headed one, the blonde greeted Haruno not very friendly. And to you too, pig. What are you doing here? Yamanaka smiled skeptically. We completed your mission, so rest, the girl said and was about to leave, when the pink-haired girl stopped her. Wait, what do you mean, completed our mission? Ino clicked her tongue in displeasure and rolled her eyes, and then reluctantly turned to her classmate. Literally. Our team was also given a mission, to catch an escaped cat. The one we caught, or rather Tora, matched the color of the one we needed to catch. But Tora has a bow and this is her distinctive feature, which, oddly enough, we did not take into account. We completed the mission given to your team plus the one given to ours. Therefore, team number 10 will rest for 5 whole days, Yamanaka boasted and, grinning at the sight of the green-eyed girl's face, left, waving her hand and saying goodbye. Good luck, big-headed one. Sakura's temple vein swelled. Have a terrible rest, pork. They wished each other before Haruno slammed the door with force and walked into the room with a loud stomp. The next day. This time Naruto gave free rein to Morpheus and woke up at lunchtime. Blue eyes opened wide and the boy sat up on the edge of the bed, coming to an end of sleep. His gaze was fixed on the time and... Your mother. I'm late, Uzumaki shouted and jumped out of bed. The first thing he did was run to the bathroom. Quickly brushing his teeth and ruffling his hair even more, the boy ran into the room again, got dressed, ran out to the kitchen, made a sandwich and, clenching it in his teeth, ran out of the apartment, while locking the door with a key. Uzumaki ran and ate a sandwich at the same time. Suddenly, it dawned on him, he was going to train with Sakura, which meant he needed to buy her something. With these thoughts, he smiled and went into the nearest flower shop. Sakura's pav. I've been standing here waiting for Naruto for half an hour. Where the hell is he? Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he doesn't want to teach me this technique. No, stop, Sakura, what are you thinking? This is Naruto. Being late is his style. Just like sensei. Oh, there he is. It hasn't even been a year. End of Sakura's pav. Naruto ran to the training ground and stopped, caught his breath, and then approached Sakura. Hello, Sakura-chan. Sorry for being late, the boy apologized, scratching the back of his head. Haruno was just about to scold her partner properly, when suddenly a huge bouquet of red roses appeared in front of her face. What is this? The pink-haired girl was perplexed. This is for you, and this is not an apology at all. I mean, if you want, you can think of it that way. It's just, being late for training with you is already rude. I overslept. You're a girl, right? And girls are supposed to be spoiled, the boy said, blushing, and then smiled broadly. I was running past a flower shop and couldn't resist this bouquet. It suits you perfectly, Sakura-chan. The blonde extended the bouquet to the girl in a bow. Sakura blushed and could have merged with these roses. Naruto, you shouldn't have. Really, you shouldn't have. This bouquet probably costs a lot of money. How are you going to live? The green-eyed girl looked sadly at her friend. Don't worry so much. Everything is fine. I don't feel sorry for anything for you, the Jinchuriki insisted, smiling sweetly. Oh, and where should I put it during our training? The boy thought. Hey, I think it will pass quickly, because you can make clones. All that remains is to teach you to fight with them as with partners. And let the bouquet lie under the tree, in the shade. Otherwise, it will quickly wither in the sun. Sakura nodded and put the bouquet under the tree with the biggest shadow. Well, perhaps we'll begin. The genin said enthusiastically. Now I will make 3 clones, as many as you can make. I will attack the third one along with the other 2 and, at the same time, show how to fight. Follow the clones, count the time interval, see when they disappear and when they reappear and where. Got it, Haruno nodded. Excellent. Naruto made 3 clones, showed them some gesture, they all nodded and got into a fighting stance. Attack. The first clone ran up to the third and hit him with his fist, disappeared. The original kicked the same one several times in the air. The second clone appeared, from above, and hit the third with the same fist. The original hit the clone again. All 3 of them attacked the third one. He was staggering a little. Everyone started attacking from above. The first clone hit the third one with his fist, disappeared. The second clone hit the third one with his foot, also disappeared. The original hit the third one with a rasengan. He flew back and finally disappeared. Naruto put a lot of chakra into the third clone so that he could hold out longer and not disappear like everyone else. The first combo ended. The blue-eyed man, rubbing his nose, smiled contentedly. Nihihi, he laughed. Wow, you fight great. Thank you. Did you remember everything? The kunoichi nodded. I think so. Excellent. Now you try. The girl nodded again and smiled resolutely in anticipation of the fight, clenching her hands into fists near her chest. Sakura created 3 clones and began to try to imitate Naruto. He sometimes helped her, creating clones and showing her what to do. So, they learned 3 combos and that's where the girl's chakra ran out. They agreed to meet tomorrow and train again. Someone's figure appeared behind one of the distant trees. The man moved away slightly, pressing himself against the tree trunk and closing his eyes. Sakura got caught today. It's good that she didn't dwell on it. Otherwise, I would have gotten a scolding for running away from the hospital, he grinned. At least 2 of the team already get along well. Comment to part 4. Came across it on the internet laughing face. Sakura asks Naruto to teach her to fight using clones, that's why it's a FF, of course. Part 5. Naruto's morning didn't start out very well, as someone had been pounding on his door for 2 hours already. The boy did everything he could to get rid of that annoying female voice. Stop sleeping and open the door. I'll report you to Lord Hokage. The blonde didn't answer her and kept trying to fall asleep again, but it didn't work. Uzumaki got up and silently headed to the kitchen, not answering the angry woman. Pouring water into a glass, the Jinchuriki took a sip and looked at the slightly damp spot on his tiles behind the faucet. A pipe burst, he thought. And all the neighbors' accusations, as always, are directed at me. Because I'm the younger generation, and we can have anything on our minds, Naruto quoted the adults. Having finished his water, Uzumaki trudged back to the bedroom, passing by the door that was almost off its hinges. He was surprised that they stopped banging on him, and instead began to knock calmly and politely. The blonde walked up to the door and looked through the keyhole, because he couldn't reach the peephole. In it, he saw a long white cloth and a little red. The genin thought and opened the door. A sweetly smiling old man entered the apartment. He nodded to the blonde and began to walk around his home, looking for his neatness or problems. It was the kitchen's turn. The boy sighed languidly and began to wait for his fate. Instead, he heard laughter. Not understanding its cause, the Jinchuriki opened his mouth and opened his eyes wide. Old man, is something wrong? The boy asked him, standing in the same place. Ahahaha, come here, Sarutobi called him. The young shinobi went into the kitchen and immediately saw the third, who was pointing his finger at a stain on the tile. Yours? Hiruzen asked. No, a pipe probably burst, the genin suggested. Well, they already managed to complain about you, Uzumaki froze in amazement, looking at the Hokage. That old lady who almost kicked my door down. The old man nodded. Oh my god, she's been pestering me for 2 hours and this is the result of my suffering. The old man just smiled cheerfully. What exactly did she complain about? You flooded her, the third answered. Of course I did, who else? The boy answered sarcastically. Okay, that's not why I came to you, the Jinchuriki raised an eyebrow with interest and crossed his arms. I want to entrust your team with a mission. I hope you'll be okay with it, because it's a C-rank mission. It involves you escorting a carpenter named Tizune to the Land of Waves. Do Sasuke and Sakura-chan already know? No, that's why you'll tell them. Your leader is Kakashi Hatake, the boy was surprised. Kakashi-sensei, has he recovered yet? Yes, he knows every detail of the mission, if anything, contact him. He will tell or explain. The mission starts today, in. The old man turned his gaze to the wall clock. 5 hours. You have all 5 hours, after that you will not rest. The Land of Waves is quite far from us. Can I rely on you, Naruto? The boy nodded. I am glad of this news, Sarutobi sneered. Okay, I have to go. Excuse me, but why did you decide to come to me personally and tell me about this, and not call the whole team to your residence? The Hokage also needs a break from the paperwork sometimes, Naruto, Hiruzen smiled. That's why I decided to notify at least one member of the team myself. Ah, I understand you. Well, I'll go. Goodbye, the blue-eyed man said goodbye and closed the door. Naruto quickly ran to the bathroom, ruffling his hair even more and brushing his teeth, he ran to the room. There, having dressed, he left the house, locking the apartment with a key. First I'll warn Sakura-chan, flashed through the blonde's mind. And then I'll run to this. Selfish. With these thoughts, Uzumaki found himself near Sakura's house. He caught his breath and, exhaling, knocked on the door. Of course, it was opened by Mebuki, the girl's mother. Do you need something? She asked politely. Hello, Mebuki-san, he bowed. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura-cha's teammate. Sakura, can I talk to her? It's about the mission. The woman opened her mouth in surprise and raised an eyebrow skeptically. A sweet and very polite boy. I don't understand why Sakura calls him an idiot and all that, the woman thought. Sure. Come in, sit down. I'll go get her now. Uzumaki smiled brightly, which earned him another warm smile from Haruno Sr., and he walked into the house. It looked like an ordinary apartment, nothing special. Opposite the entrance, a little further, there was a kitchen, to the left of the entrance was a living room, etc. The Jinchuriki walked into the living room and sat down on a soft sofa. A minute later, the boy heard Sakura's loud exclamations. Mom, why the hell did you let him into the house? You could have just called me. Damn it, what should I tell him? How am I supposed to go out to him? The shouts stopped, but continued after a few seconds. What's wrong with you? Never in my life, not for any money or gifts, not for anything. Naruto was already feeling uncomfortable. Not only had he come so early and uninvited, but he had also walked into the house, and now he had woken Sakura up with his arrival. Okay, the pink-haired girl answered loudly, but more calmly, and a minute later she went downstairs. Seeing the unexpected guest, who didn't notice her presence, the girl smiled embarrassedly and ran to the bathroom. A minute later, she was already standing in front of the boy, having caught her breath a little. Uzumaki stood up and stepped aside a little. The girl fell onto the soft furniture and exhaled heavily, then stood up again and, forcing a smile, asked, Why did you come, and so early? The blonde hung his head. I'm sorry. It was because of me that you had to get up so early, and in general it was indecent on my part. The green-eyed girl exhaled hopelessly and put her hands on her friend's shoulders. He raised his heavenly eyes to her. Naruto, everything is fine, really. What's the matter? I was in such a hurry because I thought something happened since you came early. Old Man Third is assigning our team a C rank mission. The captain is Kakashi-sensei, he's already been discharged. Oh, I was just about to ask about him. Last time, when I was running home before our training, I bumped into Sensei, asked him where he was from, and he just disappeared. Haruno Jr. shrugged. Maybe you imagined it. The girl thoughtfully lowered her gaze to the floor and shrugged. Why the hell am I taking the rap for your absences, Sensei? Thought the Jinchuriki. Anyway, at the main gates of Konoha in 5 hours, the girl nodded in response. I'm leaving. Uzumaki began to leave, but Sakura grabbed his wrist, and when he turned to her in surprise, the kunoichi, blushing, let him go. Wait, Naruto, since we're not sleeping, maybe you'll stay. For tea. The boy smiled warmly. I'd be happy to, but I still need to warn Sasuke and find out some things about the mission. Well, okay, then, see you later, the girl said somewhat disappointedly. See you later, the Jinchuriki answered in the same way and left the house. There was a loud knock on Sasuke's door. The brunette couldn't stand it and got up from the bed. Loudly stamping his feet, Uchiha approached the door and pulled the handle. Naruto. Uchiha was genuinely surprised. Hello, Sasuke. Meet me at the main gate of Konoha in 5 hours. We have a C rank mission. Bye. Uzumaki quickly informed his friend and disappeared. Sasuke opened his eyes in shock and, opening the door wide, leaned out. Having looked around and up, the brunette did not find his friend, so he closed the door in surprise and with a thoughtful look went back into the room. 5 hours later, near the gates of Konoha. Near the main gates of Konoha stood a boy of about 13. His wheat-colored hair was tangled by the playful wind, and his blue eyes sparkled in the rays of the sun like two oceans. His eyes closed, and a smile appeared on his lips. He knows what kind of mission this is. Only it can immediately be assigned an A or even S rank due to the difficulties that they will encounter along the way. His eyes opened, and Naruto turned to the sound of footsteps behind him, since before that he was standing, leaning against the gate. Sasuke and the client Tazune stood in front of him. Oh, hello, are you Tazune? The old man nodded and looked at the shinobi with irritation. I can't believe that I will be accompanied by some children. You can't even kill a fly. The Uchiha ignored the words said by the man, so he closed his eyes and, putting his hands in his pants pockets, walked away from him. Naruto smiled awkwardly. No, what are you saying? Don't worry and trust us. We're a great team, it's not for nothing that we were assigned this mission, Uzumaki said with a wide smile. Tazune exhaled, but still looked at the blonde with distrust. Hey, guys. Everyone turned around at the shout and saw Sakura. Hello, Sakura-chan, the Jinchuriki greeted sweetly. Hello, Naruto. Haruno blushed and put her index finger on her lips, but saw Sasuke from behind the blonde. Oh, Sasuke-kun. Hello. The Uchiha only gave the pink-haired girl a fleeting glance, and then turned away again, which slightly offended the girl. Tsune's face twisted. Are you kidding me? First two underage boys, and now some girl. The green-eyed girl seemed to be struck by electricity. She looked angrily at the old man and was just about to say something to him, when Uzumaki did. Sakura-chan is not some girl for you. She is an excellent shinobi and I am sure that in the future she will become a great medic. She is also a great comrade and a very beautiful girl. At these words, the carpenter looked at the blonde in shock and, cursing, crossed his arms, and then turned away. Sakura was also shocked by Uzumaki's words, but quickly recovered. Naruto. The blue-eyed man looked at the girl. Thank you very much, she said. You are welcome, Sakura-chan. I am always ready to stand up for you. The pink-haired girl smiled sweetly, blushing a little again, and then twitched, as if remembering something, and thoughtfully looked at the blonde. Naruto. The boy looked at his friend again and nodded. What do your words about the medic mean? Do you think he'll become a good medic? Uzumaki opened his eyes wide and slightly opened his mouth. XO, what an idiot. The Jinchuriki mentally scolded himself. What the hell am I saying? I need to learn to watch my tongue. I think so. This profession would suit you perfectly. You are very kind and like to help people, the boy answered and smiled sweetly. Really? I never thought about it. Thank you, the girl thanked him again. Oh, everyone is here, said Kakashi, who appeared out of nowhere with his favorite book in his hands. Kakashi-sensei, finally. Stop being late, Naruto scolded the teacher. He closed his eyes in obvious joy. As you say, Naruto, the copy ninja answered. Well then, let's go, Hatake said and smiled. Our heroes walked for literally 10 minutes. Naruto lowered his head, which blocked his view of his eyes, and smiled strangely. Soon, he thought. Sasuke looked at his friend with an incomprehensible grimace, as if he wanted to ask something, but changed his mind and turned away from Uzumaki. After another 5 minutes, the blonde suddenly raised his head and stopped. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Naruto, is something wrong? Kakashi asked. The Jinchuriki didn't answer. Behind the shinobi, from the puddle, a ninja began to appear and another one came out of the forest. Both were wearing cloaks and had huge devices instead of hands. Chains with nippers on the ends flew out of these devices. The Konoha men and the carpenter turned, but too late. The chains grabbed Kakashi and wrapped him. What? He said, before becoming minced meat, because the chains were so tight that Hataki's body could not withstand it and fell apart into several pieces. Sakura squealed and, bursting into tears, took 2 steps back. Uzumaki smiled slyly, which did not escape Sasuke's eyes. What are you smirking about? Are you glad that sensei is no longer there? The brunette turned his gaze to the renegades, who had approached Naruto from behind and pulled out chains. The Uchiha pulled out a kunai and a shuriken, and was just about to attack, when the blonde was now behind his opponents. They looked in surprise at the emptiness in front of them, while Naruto calmly approached them and, taking out 2 kunai, hit the blunt ends of them on the carotid artery, causing them to lose consciousness. Not bad, someone said. Everyone turned around and saw Kakashi, who was standing with a happy face, one hand in his pocket, and made a welcoming gesture with the other. Hello, the man continued. Sakura smiled happily, and Sasuke looked sadly, then at sensei, then at Naruto. Show-offs, the boy thought. The Jinchuriki, grinning, looked at sensei over his shoulder, due to which only his left eye was visible. Excellent, Naruto. Not only did you protect everyone here, but you also stunned the enemies. Excellent. Only the 4th Hokage showed such results at such a young age. Naruto smiled and lowered his head a little. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. You probably don't know yet that I am the son of this very 4th Hokage, the boy thought. Hatake grabbed his opponents in an armful and, together with Sasuke and Naruto, tied them to a tree. Having come to their senses, the renegades looked angrily at the travelers. So, the gray-haired man began. These are Chunin from the village hidden in the mist. How did you predict the attack? One of them asked. A puddle. It hadn't rained for a long time. It seemed suspicious to me. You knew in advance, but you still let them attack. Tsune asked. I could have destroyed them right away, but I needed to know what their goal was. What did they want? What are you getting at? The carpenter continued to pepper him with questions. I wanted to know who they were hunting. The ninja, are you, the bridge's architect? In your application, you didn't indicate that you were being pursued by ninja. You asked for protection from armed bandits. And this mission is at least B rank. But we didn't know that, we thought you needed to finish building the bridge. If we had known we'd have to deal with ninja, we would have chosen other shinobi for this. Of course, you have your reasons, but we will not put up with deliberate deception. This is not what we expected. The old man lowered his head guiltily. We are not ready for this yet. We need to go back, said Sakura. No, everyone looked at the one who said this. We will go further, he continued. But Naruto, this mission is too difficult for us. The girl continued. So be it. Someday, we should start learning to carry out such missions. I'm tired of constantly running after cats, weeding the garden, sitting with children and so on. This work is absolutely not for ninja. Haruno thoughtfully looked at the boy. But he's right, she thought. I agree with him. The team looked at the brunette in surprise. Are you serious, Sasuke? Kakashi asked again. Absolutely. But the likelihood that you will cope with this mission is practically zero, Hatake continued to persuade his wards. But the mission is for shinobi, Naruto confirmed once again. Kakashi was in complete despair. Should he continue the mission or not? His sixth sense was against it, but the other 5 were for it. But they were genin. They were only given D-rank missions, and this C-rank mission was an exception to Naruto's eternal whining, joined by Sasuke. Positive feelings told him that he should continue. This mission was truly like training for young ninja, a task ideal for shinobi. Still, all 5 of Kakashi's senses won over his thoughts, and he exhaled desperately and said, Okay, only this is the first and last time. The 7th team smiled happily, and old man Tazun nodded contentedly and put his hands on his hips. Night was approaching. The team was tired. Sakura walked as if she was ready to fall at any moment, so Hatake kept a close eye on her. Sasuke also walked with his hands in his pants pockets, only occasionally yawning. However, so was Naruto. Only he threw his hands behind his head. Tazun was almost the last one, barely breathing and stopping every 3 minutes to wipe the sweat from his face with his towel around his neck. The gray-haired man felt uneasy from such a picture, so he said, I declare a camp for the night. Everyone looked at him tiredly. This is, of course, good, but where? The man looked around. There was only forest around. Well, then let's go deeper into the forest and find a clearing there. The friends shrugged their shoulders and, agreeing with the sensei, moved into the forest. Almost 20 minutes later, the team came across a small clearing, where they set up camp. Sakura quickly made a bed next to Sasuke and fell asleep right away with a happy smile. Sasuke lay there for a bit, looking at the sky, then decided to move away from Sakura, which he did, and also fell asleep. Tazun was also asleep. Only Kakashi and Naruto remained. Lie down. I'll sit and watch, said Hatake, to which Naruto, without saying anything, sat down next to him and began to move his mentor. The gray-haired man was shocked. A hint that I should go to bed. The boy nodded briefly. Are you sure? Kakashi-sensei, go and get some sleep. When I get tired, I'll wake you up, the man exhaled. Well then, okay, if you feel someone. Kakashi-sensei, the blonde exclaimed quietly, so as not to wake his comrades. The man only exhaled hopelessly and went to bed. Somewhere around 3 in the morning Naruto's eyes began to stick together and he almost fell, sitting on a flat place. The guy's eyes opened wide, and he went to the teacher, pulled him by the shoulder, from which he woke up, and pointed to the place where he had recently been sitting. The Junin understood everything without words, so he got up and went to that place, and Naruto, sweetly stretching in his place, fell asleep. In the morning, blue eyes opened wide, Uzumaki stretched and looked at his friends. Everyone was still asleep. Even Kakashi could not stand it and fell asleep, sitting. The Jinchuriki only smiled and went to a small river that they had seen yesterday when they were walking to this clearing. Arriving at the place, Naruto squatted down and dipped his hands in cool crystal clear water, and then splashed the contents on his face. And he did this twice. After sitting for a while and looking at the sunrise, since the blonde got up too early, the guy wanted to wash himself again, but looked at his reflection in the water like, what the hell? He shouted at the top of his lungs and immediately covered his mouth with his hands. I don't understand. Why am I 17 again? The blonde looked at the water in amazement and tried to crumple his face and hair, but nothing changed. So, we need to contact Kurama. A moment and Naruto was already in his subconscious. Kurama, he called the 9-tailed fox. The fox exhaled and opened one eye, then both at once and jumped on the spot. Did I miss something? The demon asked in shock. Why are you an adult again? I don't know. I don't understand what's going on, but we're still in the past. Kurama thought for a moment and gave his verdict. It seems to me that Madara was pretty battered. His chakra will soon be completely depleted. Naruto's eyes sparkled happily, and his mouth opened in a wide smile. Really? The fox shook his head. The smile immediately disappeared from the guy's face. This is just my assumption, but it doesn't mean that everything is so. Uzumaki sadly lowered his head, and then immediately perked up and clenched his hands into fists. I will believe in my friends, no matter what. The demon smiled approvingly. This is the Naruto I've known all my life. Okay, it's time for you to go. Think of something, otherwise everyone's jaws will drop from what they see, the nine-tailed fox laughed. Yeah, and one more thing. When did you manage to change your clothes? The blue-eyed man looked at his friend with confusion, and then at himself. He was wearing his favorite orange pants and a black and orange jacket. Wow, and, oh my god, more problems, the fox smiled again. Quote. It's okay. You've gotten into worse troubles than this. Naruto smiled widely and began to disappear, finding himself near the river again and looking at the frightened face of the pink-haired girl. Sakura-chan! Haruno screamed and fell on her butt. Naruto stood up and began to approach the kunoichi, saying words of comfort and asking her to listen to him, but the girl only backed away. No, don't come any closer. Who are you? Where is Naruto? The blonde man ran his hand over his face in resignation. Sakura-chan, I am Naruto. You're lying. Really? Have I really changed that much? It's only been 4 years since then. Sakura looked at the guy in confusion. The thing is, Who the hell is that? Kakashi came running to Haruno's scream, followed by Sasuke and Tazune. Great. Just wonderful. The Jinchuriki thought. Naruto. The man said in shock. Yes, it's me. But, what's wrong with you? Naruto. Sasuke and Tazune asked, also shocked. Let me speak. The guy couldn't stand it. Sakura jumped to her feet and took a defensive pose. No matter what, I am Naruto, the real one. It's just, I'm from the future. Uzumaki looked at his comrades, whose faces were filled with stunned expressions. It's true. I was in the war, when Madara used. In the war, Haruno screamed again. Yes. Wait, did you say, Madara? Are you going to keep asking questions or will you listen to me and then ask questions? Everyone nodded. Great. Anyway, it was the Fourth Shinobi World War. We were fighting the resurrected Madara, who had revived the 10 Tails and become its Jinchuriki. Everyone was even more shocked. Madara was almost defeated by us, Team 7. I am the Jinchuriki of the 9 Tails and I became friends with my tailed beast named Kurama. Naruto will tame the 9 Tails demon. Kakashi thought. Wow, and I didn't know that the tailed beasts had names. Or did Naruto give the demon a name? That's why I could enter the mode. Kyuubi mode, and then Rakudo, the blonde continued. Madara used his last technique, Kako no Kyoru, on me before his body fell apart and his soul moved to another body. But when he restores his strength and body, who knows what will happen there. Therefore, I must return quickly, and for this, the Yamanaka clan in my time must use a technique opposite to this one on me, then I will be in the future again, Naruto finished. The silence lasted about a minute, then questions followed. Wait, so there will be a war in the future? And will it be against Madara? Asked Sakura, to which she received a nod. And who will start this war? Asked Kakashi. Uzumaki, as if frightened, jumped a little in place. Everything has its time, he answered. In theory, you should not know about this. If something changes in the past, it will affect the future. Everyone nodded understandingly. Now everything is clear, Kakashi answered for everyone. But how will Madara be there? The technique invented by the second Hokage, Edo Tensei. It resurrects the dead. Hitaki thoughtfully lowered his head. Naruto, what will I be like in the future? Sakura asked, blushing. The blonde smiled widely. You will. I will not reveal all my cards. Haruno puffed out her cheeks offendedly. I can only say that you will be a real beauty. And yes, an excellent medic, even better than the great Sannin Tsunade Senju. Green eyes sparkled, and pale cheekbones turned red, because Naruto put his hand on the girl's head and smiled widely. Such a charming, Snow White and real smile. It can't be, thought Sakura. In the future, Naruto will become so handsome, she thought and smiled, but then immediately discarded this thought. Haruno, what are you talking about? Only Sasuke and no one else. Yeah, it will be hard to come to terms with this, but okay. We all completely forgot about the mission. It's time to move, said Kakashi and began to walk away to the camp. Everyone followed him. Our heroes continued on their way, despite the truth revealed to them. It was a bit strange to see Naruto as a 17-year-old, since yesterday he was only 13, but after he returns back to the future, everything will go back to normal, but is that so? Commentary on Part 5. New FF from my chocolate bar, 3. Please rate carrot carrot. Part 6. The team continued the mission. Now they are walking along a forest road, not saying a word. Naruto was walking ahead of everyone with a thoughtful look. Sasuke was walking slightly behind, his hands in his pants pockets and his eyes closed. Next to him was Sakura, who looked at the Uchiha, then at the Uzumaki and tried to fish out information about which of them was more beautiful, kinder, stronger, and overall better. Kakashi looked at his charges, trying to understand them, but once again exhaled. He took out his book. Tazune, looking at Sasuke and Sakura, grumbled to himself that he was accompanied by brats, but looking at Naruto and Kakashi he realized that not everyone here was such a weakling. Sakura finished thinking and decided to act. She approached Sasuke and began to look at his face, leaning forward a little and crossing her arms behind her back. Sasuke-kun, the girl began. The brunette opened one eye and, without turning his head, looked at the pink-haired girl, and then closed it again. What do you want? He asked a little rudely. What are you thinking about? The kunoichi asked again. None of your business, the Uchiha answered just as rudely, to which the green-eyed girl, frowning, proudly raised her head and followed Naruto. Having caught up with the blonde, she began to examine his face. Blue eyes are downcast, his gaze is watching the road, and his eyebrows are slightly furrowed. At first glance, you can tell that he does not hear anyone except his own thoughts. Naruto, the pink-haired girl called her friend. The guy continued walking, looking at the road. The kunoichi frowned and, hitting him in the side with her elbow, said again. Naruto, can you hear me? Uzumaki seemed to come out of a trance, which was evident from his facial expression, and then looked at the girl. What are you thinking about so intensely? The Jinchuriki took in Sakura's words for a few seconds, and then, shaking his head, turned away from his teammate. Haruno frowned again. Who am I talking to? What's wrong with you, Naruto? Sasuke-kun. Having said this, the pink-haired girl looked at the Uchiha and returned to the blonde again. Nothing. Everything is fine, Sakura-chan. Sorry for not paying attention. I was just thinking about my situation. Will my friends, there, in the future, be able to understand how the technique works and how to bring me back? The girl looked sadly at the guy and turned to the Uchiha, waiting for an answer. He looked at her with complete indifference and, when he got tired of it, simply closed his eyes, continuing on his way. The kunoichi chuckled and crossed her arms, turning back. All the way she talked to Naruto, with whom, as it seemed to her, it was very pleasant to communicate. With him, not like with Sasuke. The blonde understood her, knew everything she liked and did not like, and knew everything she would love and fall out of love with. For example, now she really liked roses, but when she grew up, she would like lilies. And also, but with great effort, she was able to squeeze out of Uzumaki the information that she and Ino would stop squabbling over Sasuke and become best friends like before. At first, she was not happy with this fact, but she had to come to terms with her fate. Naruto, Sakura turned to the blonde again. He looked at her and, smiling, nodded, expecting a question. Tell me, just in secret, she began intriguingly and showed with a hand gesture so that Uzumaki would bend over to her. Even bending over, Naruto was still taller than her, so the pink-haired girl had to stand a little on her toes. Will we date Sasuke-kun? She asked in a whisper. Naruto opened his eyes wide. This question echoed painfully in his subconscious. He understood that now this Sakura was still little and lived only in childhood dreams, but it was not worth ruining them, was it? Why yes. Of course, the blonde answered, stuttering. Her green eyes sparkled like two precious stones, and her mouth stretched into a happy smile. Really? Really? Uzumaki nodded uncertainly and the girl began to happily jump around the area. Having had her fill of joy and calming down, Haruno stopped near the Jinchuriki, resting heavily. Nah. Phew. Phew. Naruto. Phew. Who will you be with? The guy looked at the pink-haired girl in bewilderment. I won't have a partner. Sakura raised her eyebrows in surprise and looked at her friend with regret. She walked up to him and hugged him tightly, which shocked Uzumaki. Even a small one is very strong and without any chakra, the blonde thought and smiled. No, in the future I will become a matchmaker and introduce you to someone, the kunoichi said with a wide smile. What about Ino? Naruto opened his eyes wide and began to shake his head briefly, a little scared. What about Hinata? No, she's not my type of girl. What do you mean? I'm afraid of her. I've noticed her several times behind a pole, a wall, a door, a fence. Everywhere. She's watching me and that's what scares me. Sakura listened to Uzumaki in amazement and, swallowing the lump in her throat, continued. Okay. What about Tenten? The armorer. In a moment I'm already there. The blonde pointed his finger at the sky. Damn it. Because of your tastes in types of girls, I won't be able to become a matchmaker. Okay. Then tell me, what type of girl are you attracted to? Haruno asked tiredly. Oh, she won't have time for me in the future. But she has short pink hair, green eyes and an amazing mind, beauty, courage, hard work, bravery. So who is it? The pink-haired girl interrupted the guy. The Jinchuriki placed his palm on her head and, smiling, answered. You'll find out. The girl snorted resentfully and, puffing out her cheeks, crossed her arms over her chest. In the future, I'll definitely beat you up so badly that only skin will remain. Uzumaki smiled awkwardly and removed his hand from the pink-haired girl's head. Don't worry about it. This will happen often, Naruto said, to which Sakura grinned slyly. You idiots. Why did I pay you so much? You said that you were the best mercenaries. The short man shouted. 2 shinobi were kneeling in front of him, bowing. One of them replied. Excuse us, sir, but they are too strong. Especially that boy. The man raised an eyebrow in surprise. What boy? Did some kid beat you too? I paid you to eliminate the carpenter, not so that you could come to me and complain about some boy. Excuse us, the shinobi said, leaning even further. Gato, calm down. A long and sharp sword was aimed at the man. Hire me. I will deal with them myself. The man, putting his hands forward, backed away. A drop of sweat rolled down his face. Okay, just. Money in advance, the mercenary interrupted him, grinning slyly. The man nodded. Because I am not one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, Zabuza Momochi. The waves do not beat against each other very much. The sky is cloudy. It seems that rain is about to start, but it does not. The sight is obscured by fog and only excellent knowledge of the area will help to navigate here. Team number 7 was in a small boat. Kakashi was talking to the carpenter who was carrying them. Sasuke was also listening to the man. Sakura was watching Naruto and giggling quietly. And why? Because he couldn't sit still, so he couldn't find a comfortable position. Kakaaa ashi sensei, Uzumaki drawled. Hitaki was distracted from the conversation and looked at the blonde. Can I go myself? Everyone looked at the guy in surprise. Naruto, can you walk on water? The Jinchuriki nodded uncertainly. Sakura's eyes widened, and the Uchiha clicked his tongue in displeasure. Well then you can. Just be quiet. Naruto was delighted and nodded vigorously, and then jumped out of the boat, after which Haruno closed her eyes in fear. The girl felt someone trying to remove their hands from her face, so she gave in and saw Uzumaki, smiling tenderly and looking at Uzumaki with care. The kunoichi instantly blushed. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, I can walk on water just fine. The pink-haired girl looked at the blonde's feet, the soles of which slightly glowed blue. The girl exhaled in relief and smiled. After a while, Sasuke watched the carefree Uzumaki with irritation. He was infuriated by the fact that Naruto was better than him in everything. So what if he was already an adult? That 3 or 4 years had passed since that moment. So what? The Uchiha cursed and dangled his legs from the boat. Sasuke-kun, what are you doing? Sakura asked the boy. I want to learn how to do the same as Naruto, the Uchiha answered and began to try to concentrate chakra in his legs. But he's from the future. He's much older than you. You'll learn it. Plus, it's deep here, Haruno answered, grabbing Sasuke's hand. He abruptly pulled his hand out of hers and jumped into the water. Sasuke-kun, the girl exclaimed. Hitaki turned around at the sound of a splash. Sasuke, Kakashi shouted and was about to jump into the water after him, just like Naruto did. Naruto swam to the very bottom, noting to himself that it was indeed very deep here. After swimming a little more, he noticed 3 white spots. These were Sasuke's sleeves and shorts. Uzumaki accelerated with the help of chakra and immediately found himself next to the Uchiha, who was trying with effort to pull his leg out of the stones, but all in vain. Naruto saw how serious everything was and created a clone, and with its help a rasengan. Because of the vortexes of chakra that came from the jutsu, it seemed that a whirlpool had started on the surface of the water. The blonde hit the stones from below and they scattered into smaller ones, and Sasuke was able to move his leg. Naruto took his hand and put it on his shoulders, and then began to rise to the surface. A minute later, the Uchiha and Uzumaki were on the surface, breathing heavily. Naruto threw Sasuke into the boat, and then climbed in himself. When the guys caught their breath, Naruto began. Sasuke, you idiot, why the hell did you dive into the water? Uchiha raised himself on his elbows. I didn't dive. I wanted to. But the brunette did not dare to continue. Uzumaki looked at him expectantly. What did you want? Sasuke waved off the Jinchuriki. So that this doesn't happen again, or I'll call the Anbu captain and he'll take you away from the mission, Kakashi said, to which Sasuke rolled over onto his stomach and started pounding the bottom of the boat. Hey, do you want us all to drown? The boatman was indignant. It pisses me off that everyone loves you, that you're as strong as Kakashi. Maybe even stronger. It pisses me off that you're saving us. Saving me. You piss me off, Naruto. Uzumaki listened calmly to the Uchiha and smiled, which puzzled the last of the Uchiha clan. Now you know what it was like for me as a child, the brunette's eyes widened. But, you were considered. Exactly. And you were loved. And I also complained about this. But in the future, I will achieve recognition and stop being a monster for everyone. Everyone looked at the blonde with excitement. Why are you always smiling? Are you teaching me something? Naruto just shrugged. I guess I don't want you to repeat the mistakes you'll make in the future. The brunette raised an eyebrow in surprise. What mistakes? I shouldn't tell you about them. Sasuke frowned and, closing his eyes and crossing his arms, assumed a sitting position. Let's just get this mission over with, he said, to which everyone shrugged and the boatman continued to carry the team. Everyone began to look at each other strangely and look at Tazuna. The man could not stand it. What's the problem? Are we playing a staring contest? Kakashi looked at his charges again. Mr. Tazune, I have a question before we arrive. The old man lowered his head and his eyes were covered by his hat. You are being chased. Tell me why. Be honest. Shipowner Gato. Everyone looked at Naruto in surprise. I remember this mission and this bridge very well as its name, the guy smiled. Shipowner Gato is chasing Mr. Tazune. He is one of the richest men in the world. His business is currently located here, and if the bridge is completed, Gato will lose everything. But in order to prevent this from happening, he decided to neutralize the bridge architect, that is, you, the blonde explained and nodded to the old man. The land of waves is very poor, so you could not pay more to hire professional ninja. Did I tell you everything correctly? The man nodded. Yes, that's right. Forgive me for not telling the truth earlier. You would have dropped me off on the nearest shore, and you yourselves would have sailed away. Or will you do so? Abandon the poor old man and leave. And you will not be ashamed after my death. My 8-year-old grandson is waiting for me. He will yearn and say, Grandpa, where is my beloved grandfather? And I will no longer be in this world. Hatake exchanged glances with the team, and then exhaled heavily. Okay, we will guard you for a while. But if my team is in great danger, then they will have to leave this country. Tazune nodded understandingly. We will be there soon, the boatman said. It's good that everything worked out and we weren't noticed. That's for sure, Sakura agreed. The team sailed under the bridge and found themselves in a beautiful area with thick trees growing out of the water. Wow, Haruno exclaimed. It's so beautiful here. The boat moored near the side. The guys went ashore and the boatman, wishing everyone good luck, started the engine and drove off in another direction. Well, let's go, I'll introduce you to my family, Tazune said and went ahead, after which everyone followed him. No one expected to meet such a dangerous obstacle on the way. No one, except Naruto. Commentary on Part 6. You've waited, yes, this is a sale. Believe me, sorry for keeping her out for so long. School is sometimes cruel, and during the holidays I sat in the village without the internet, then, my birthday, well, and school. I hope you understand. Part 7. Comment to Part 7. I haven't written anything for a long time. Carrot. I apologize for that, there was absolutely no inspiration. I wrote the sequel, as you asked. 3. I hope you like it. The boys were walking along the road surrounding the forest again. No one said a word. Suddenly, a noise was heard in the bushes to the right. The team stopped, the shinobi took out their weapons and were already preparing for battle, but nothing happened. Naruto's eyes widened. This is a warning, he thought. There was another noise from Sasuke, and the brunette, turning sharply, threw a kunai into the bushes. Everyone ran in the direction of the throw, and the guy went into the forest to get his weapon. Naruto stood with Kakashi at a distance from everyone and looked back over his shoulder, which surprised Hatake a little. The Uchiha returned from the forest with his kunai and a white rabbit. The Junin's eyes widened. A white rabbit, but it's summer now. White rabbits are only found in winter. So it's domestic. But where did it come from? The man heard Uzumaki take out a kunai, then looked at the guy out of the corner of his eye. He was standing in a defensive pose and peering into the forest, at the trees, behind everyone. Kakashi also turned to the forest. His eyes widened and he exclaimed, "Look out!" The entire team, including Tazuna, crouched down, and behind them, a huge sword was stuck into a tree. It can't be. A thug, a ninja suddenly appeared on the sword, Zabuza Momochi, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. The man laughed quietly. "Oh, and it turns out you know me. Copy ninja Kakashi Hatake." Kakashi ordered the team to guard Tazuna, staying away from the swordsman, which they did without question. "Kakashi, can we help?" Sasuke asked the teacher. He shook his head and took the edge of the bandage pulled over his left eye, then slowly raised it. "We can't do without this." Hatake opened his eye, in which the Sharingan flashed. Black commas twirled around the pupil, expanding, and froze. The Uchiha's eyes also widened. "Stay in the Momonji position and guard Lord Tazuna at all costs." The guys nodded and, taking out their kunai, stood in position, Sasuke in front of Tazuna, and Naruto and Sakura on either side. "You can't defeat me," the man said with a grin and, making the sheep seal, raised his hand up, after which fog began to form on the road. "Kurigakure. Ninja in the fog," Zabuza said and began to disappear into the fog. The team perked up. Kakashi began to carefully examine the area. There was a small river behind the bushes, and this was a clear advantage for the enemy, as ninja from the land of waves. Naruto felt something behind him and, turning sharply, hit Zabuza's water clone with a kunai. Sasuke and Sakura turned around in an instant, but saw only Tazuna's face, frozen in horror. Thank you," the old man thanked, stuttering. Naruto said nothing and stood back up in his position. Sasuke gripped the kunai tighter. "I won't let him," he thought. "I won't let Naruto overtake me. I know that he's older now, and therefore more experienced, but if I surpass him like this, I'll become truly strong." And Kakashi, where did he get the Sharingan? The Sharingan is only in the Uchiha clan, and he, if my memory serves me right, is Hatake. So where did he get it from? Suddenly his body began to tremble. The kunai fell from his hand. The brunette tried to stop trembling, but nothing worked. His breathing began to intermittently, and a drop of sweat ran down his temple. Sakura watched the guy warily and worriedly. Kakashi was covered in a thick veil of fog. "Sensei," the pink-haired girl exclaimed, looking at the point where Hatake had just been. 7 points, was heard somewhere in the fog. Haruno began to look around in fear. "What? Who said that?" "Don't worry, Sakura, I will fight to the death for you. And for all of you," the ash-haired man's voice was heard from the fog. "Larynx, spine, liver, carotid artery, iliac vein, kidneys, heart. Which one should we choose?" The swordsman was speaking in the meantime. The guys gripped the handles of their kunai tighter, watching the situation with horror on their faces. "Zabuza is quite a strong opponent. And also a clever and silent killer. We need to keep our ears open, otherwise we will be finished off," Uzumaki thought. Suddenly, all the fog evaporated, and the team saw Kakashi. Used chakra to disperse the fog, Sasuke thought to himself. Naruto darted his gaze from side to side and decided to turn around again, but almost dropped the kunai from surprise. "Boo," Momochi said with a killer's expression and swung the thug. The Jinchuriki swung his kunai in turn. Suddenly, Kakashi appears between them and stops the Nukenen's blow. Naruto jumps a meter back, after which Sasuke and Sakura do the same, and Uzumaki moves closer to Tazuna to protect himself. Hatake's kunai cracks and breaks. The man notices this with shock and is immediately attacked by Zabuza with a smirk on his face. In an instant, Kakashi was cut in half. Sakura drops the kunai in horror and covers her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming, and then takes an unsuccessful step back and falls to the ground. Sakura-chan. Naruto created a clone, leaving him with the carpenter, and ran to the girl. The blonde carefully took her hand and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" The kunoichi, without answering, briefly shook her head and Naruto hugged her tightly. "Kakashi-sensei is fine. Look." The blonde moved a little to the side, and Haruno saw Zabuza's shocked face, and in front of him the falling, cut water. The girl's eyes sparkled and she smiled, breathing out in relief. A water clone jutsu. Horrible, Momochi thought to himself. Even in the fog, he noticed what I was doing and copied it right away. The cold steel of a kunai was pressed to the swordsman's throat, and a calm but cold-blooded voice was heard from behind. "Don't move. A few seconds passed, and then the quiet laughter was heard again. Do you think it's over? The swordsman said. Kakashi looked at the man with a question in his eyes. It seems you really don't understand. Your technique is a cheap fake. I can't be defeated by some imitator like you. There was another moment of silence, after which Momochi continued. You never cease to amaze me. Managed to copy my jutsu while you were talking. Don't worry, Sakura, I will fight to the death for you. And for all of you. Very well, made the clone talk to get attention, and hid in the fog and waited for me to act. Well done. A moment and another Zabuza appears behind Kakashi. But you can't outsmart me so easily, he said and pierced his own clone with a thug. It's another clone, Naruto warned the Junin. Kakashi stood up half-turned and immediately crouched, as Zabuza swung his heavy sword. The sword flew over Hitaki's head and stuck into the ground. Momochi swapped his hands on the hilt and, holding onto the sword with one of them, kicked Kakashi, quickly grabbed the weapon and moved towards the man, but, noticing something, he slowed down. Makebishi spikes. Trying to stop me, the swordsman said, turning back. A fool, he said and dove into the water where Kakashi fell after the blow. Sensei. Sakura cried out in fear, clutching Naruto's jacket sleeve tighter. Physically not bad, Sasuke thought to himself, watching his teacher floating to the surface of the water. Damn, I'm in the water, Hitaki mentally exclaimed. XO, sensei, get out of there. Naruto shouted, but Momochi was faster. Fool, the swordsman said, making hand seals. Water prison jutsu. No, a second and Kakashi was already in a kind of water ball. XO. Mistake, the ash-haired man thought to himself, looking at Zabuza, you shouldn't have hidden underwater. Momochi laughed maliciously again. A prison made of water, but it's stronger than steel. It's hard to fight when you can't move. That's all, respected Kakashi. We'll finish you off later, but for now, he said, turning around, we'll deal with your friends. The swordsman's eyes immediately widened, seeing Uzumaki in front of him. Uchiha and Haruno also widened their eyes in amazement. When did he manage to do it? Sakura thought to herself before Naruto shouted. Rasengan, and hit the man with the technique, but he managed to dodge and kick the guy in the back. The blonde did a somersault on the water and quickly turned around, jumping up, as Zabuza was preparing a second portion of the water prison. Smart kid, not like you, Kakashi, the swordsman told the Junin. Sasuke gritted his teeth and jerked towards Zabuza with a kunai. No, Sasuke, don't get in there, Kakashi exclaimed, but the brunette didn't listen to him. Running to the edge of the bank, Uchiha bounced off it up and forward and flew straight at Momochi with a kunai extended forward. When the brunette flew closer to the man, he simply took a step to the side and Sasuke fell into the water. The swordsman let out a malicious laugh, but felt something on his leg. Looking down, he saw a hand that had firmly grabbed his shin and was trying to drag him down. But Zabuza is on water, like on land, so it's not that simple. The man began to lift the water with his free hand, inside which the brunette was, after which he threw him onto the shore. Finding himself on the ground, the boy began to breathe heavily, and the pink-haired girl ran up to him with concern. Do you think that you put on a bandage and are already a ninja? When you have been between life and death so many times that you no longer care, then they will call you a ninja, the swordsman said and created a water clone. When you become dangerous even for me, then maybe you will deserve the title of ninja. The clone made the sheep, seal and fog formed around him again, and calling upstarts like you that is just ridiculous. Naruto stood, his hands ready to create a Rasengan. There was movement behind him, the guy turned around and flew back sharply, as the man kicked him. The forehead protector flew off the blonde's head and fell to the ground, and then was pressed into it by the killer's foot. Something is weak. I expected more from you. No, Naruto, the girl exclaimed. Hitaki growled angrily. Grab the builder and run. You can't defeat him. The clone can't run far from the original. Run far enough and he won't be able to catch up with you. A smirk was heard from the side. The guy wiped a trickle of blood from his lip and began to slowly rise. How many times do I have to repeat these words? Kakashi tried to make out Naruto in the fog in surprise. A clone appeared, his hand extended to the side. Never, the sound of a whirlwind was heard, and a beautiful blue glow appeared, will not give up. The Jinchuriki suddenly flew out of the fog and hit Zabuza's clone with a Rasengan. It immediately disappeared, as did the technique. Sakura, with a blush on her cheeks, smiled with relief. Uzumaki slowly turned to Momochi. Now you, he said, and in an instant his body was enveloped in what seemed to be fire. A second and Naruto was already standing behind the swordsman, who did not have time to follow the blonde. Planetary rasengan, the guy shouted, and Zabuza was hit by 6 rasengans of the same size. The man's hand, like himself, came out of the water prison and the technique dissipated. The killer flew away from the Jinchuriki almost 10 meters, flying past the team and the carpenter, after which he safely crashed into the nearest tree. The entire team, not excluding Tazuna, looked in shock at Naruto, engulfed in flames. What the hell? Uchiha broke the silence. The blonde came out of Kyuubi mode. Kakashi-sensei, are you okay? Uzumaki asked, not paying any attention to the brunette's words. I'll live, the man replied and came out of the water, heading towards the forest where Zabuza had flown. Everyone followed him. Finding himself in front of Momochi, who tried to get up, Hitaki immediately perked up, but suddenly 2 senbon were stuck into the swordsman's neck and he fell again, but this time for sure. The guys looked in surprise at the place where the senbon had come from. On a tree branch stood a man dressed in wide swamp-colored pants and a sweater of the same color. Over it, he wore a blue, peculiar robe. On his feet were sandals, and on his head with long brown hair was a bun. On his face was a mask with slits for the eyes and red lines. On top was the sign of a village hidden in the fog. Haku, Naruto thought, clenching his fist tightly. Thank you for catching him, the boy said and looked at the unconscious body of the killer. We've been chasing him for a long time. The boy jumped off the branch and approached Zabuza, taking him by the arm. Judging by the mask, you are a spy for the village hidden in the mist. Impressive. You are well informed. I am a member of the tracking group, the best in the village hidden in the mist. I was supposed to track Zabuza. Judging by his height and voice, we can say that he is the same age as Sasuke. And he is already an experienced killer. This is not just a child. Then who? Kakashi thought, looking at Haku's face hidden under the mask. The battle is over, and I will take care of the rest myself, the boy said, even his body keeps secrets. No one should know about them. After a minute of silence, the spy made the sheep seal. Take your time, Uzumaki said. All eyes turned to the boy. Leave Zabuza here, Haku. It was not visible under the mask, but the brown-haired man's eyes widened. What? How? Does he know me? The mercenary thought. Why do you need him? So that you don't return together, trying to stop the construction of the bridge. Everyone looked at Uzumaki in surprise. Haku bit his lip. I don't understand what you're talking about. I made it clear that he's dead in. You just knocked him out with your senbon. Don't even try to argue. I know everything about you and I'll find a truthful word for every lie you say. There was a moment of silence, which was broken by Haku, grinning. I wonder how you can know everything. Naruto extended his hand. Give Zabuza back. No way, the boy said and immediately threw a smoke bomb. The blonde's eyes widened and he instantly pushed off the ground towards the mercenaries, extending his hand to Momochi. The bomb touched the ground. Explosion. A thick fog formed. The guys started coughing and trying to disperse the smoke. Naruto coughed and tried to focus his gaze with narrowed eyes on the branch where the missing nin had been recently. Empty. The smoke finally cleared and Kakashi appeared lying on the ground. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura excitedly exclaimed and ran up to the man, then Sasuke and Tazuna pulled themselves up to her. Don't worry, he just overexerted himself while using the Sharingan. He'll sleep and everything will be fine, Naruto said, lifting his sensei. Let's go to the village quickly. I'll carry him. It's too bad I couldn't stop Haku. I have one more try there, on the bridge. I want them to stay alive, they deserve it. Part 8. The waves crashed against each other and washed the pier, creating a soothing noise. Seagulls circled above the water, carefully searching for fish in it to eat later. The sea air, so fresh and cool, sometimes penetrated the open windows of the houses, giving people peace. Kakashi opened his eyes, staring at the ceiling in surprise for a few seconds. Looking around, the man realized that he was in Lord Tazuna's house and exhaled heavily. You shouldn't have strained your Sharingan so much. There was a creak, and a woman named Tsunami entered the room. She, having made sure that the shinobi had woken up, put her hands on her hips and asked. Are you awake? How are you feeling? Kakashi assumed a sitting position, holding his head. I won't be able to walk for a week. At least. That's okay. Lie down, rest. Hitaki looked at Tsunami for a few seconds, then exhaled painfully, lying back down. Okay. He agreed with the woman. Team 7 entered the room with Tazuna. Are you awake? Asked the builder, but Kakashi didn't answer. Sakura approached the man. Here's what I'll tell you, Sensei, the Sharingan is, of course, power, but if there are such consequences, The girl put her hands to her chest, looking sadly at the floor. Sorry for making you worry. Oh, come on, at least you took down such a strong ninja, the old man said, wiping his face with a towel on his neck. I only helped a little, but I took him down, Naruto. You're a good boy, Naruto smiled, scratching the back of his head. That guy in the mask. I didn't like him, Sakura said thoughtfully. Yeah, he's obviously a cool shinobi. What makes him so cool? He's a sumo, a center for the destruction of seasoned operatives. They are also called Deizutsu, guardians of the world. They'll bury him, and then you won't find him. The shinobi body is full of secrets, ninjutsu, chakra, various special means. If they find out about them, everyone's done for. If they kill me, they'll study the Sharingan, and then destroy all of ours. So people like that kid deal with corpses so that no one finds out. The young guy in the mask hung over the strongest mercenary killer, putting his index and middle fingers to the vein in his neck to check his pulse. If a shinobi rebels, then Deizutsu kills him and does everything so that not a mosquito can sharpen its nose. They are professionals. The boy laid out a small set of autopsy weapons next to the missing nin's body and pulled out a pair of pocket scissors. We're going to cut you up a bit now, the boy said, holding the scissors to the bandage on the man's face, but Momochi suddenly grabbed his hand, which slightly scared the boy. The shinobi pulled down the bandage, revealing his mouth with sharp, shark-like teeth. Don't you want to hit me on the head? The missing nin said menacingly, his eyes wide open. The boy put the scissors back, as well as the rest of the set. Well, have you finally woken up? The man sat up, letting out painful sighs. You're just some kind of monster, Zabuza said, pulling the senbons out of his neck. Look at yourself, the boy replied in a serious tone. Keep it down, or you'll hit an oak tree again, he grinned. How long are you going to walk around with that thing on your face? The guy chuckled quietly. What? I got used to it, the brunette said, putting his hand on the mask. Cleverly, the mask lowered, and the forehead protector of the village hidden by the fog became visible. I fooled those ninja, the shinobi took off the mask and his face became visible. This is a young man of very handsome appearance, almost like a girl's. Brown eyes with long eyelashes, a neat nose and plump lips. Silky hair and smooth pale skin, like porcelain, completed his appearance. You would have said, thank you. If it weren't for me, you would be lying here and rotting now, the guy said, looking at the missing nin coughing up blood. Although one guy from their team actually bothered me, Zabuza narrowed his eyes and looked sideways at his partner. You mean that blonde guy? Haku nodded. He clearly doesn't look like a genin, but he can't be the second sensei on the team. He called me by name and told me what would happen in advance, as if he already knew everything. He beat me. I've never seen such techniques before, it was as if he was engulfed in fire. A moment and I was already hugging a tree 100 meters away from him. We need to keep our ears open. Otherwise, he'll finish us off. No way. Now I know about his antics, this trick won't work on me a second time. I need to find out what kind of fruit he is, there are plenty of them in the leaf, the brown-haired man nodded briefly. Well, usually after this trick of mine you won't be able to walk for a week. But you are a different matter, the guy said moralizingly and got up from the ground. I've been sitting here with you for too long, Haku said, looking into the distance. Anyway, behave yourself. Kakashi was sitting on the futon, putting his hand to his head. We killed Zabuza. Why do I have a bad feeling? Looks like we did something wrong again. The Junin grinned. They didn't kill him. He was stunned by that guy's senbon, Haku. I tried to reason with him and return Zabuza to us, but it didn't work. More importantly, how are you feeling? Naruto asked worriedly. Sakura slowly turned her gaze to Naruto, still with a blush on her cheeks. The guy was talking to Sensei, but Haruno was not listening to their conversation. Well, inner Sakura said ironically, crossing her arms over her chest. Just look at her. Sasuke-kun is my only one. I love Sasuke-kun. And blah, 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 the ego said, imitating the pink-haired girl in its own way. The girl's eyes were covered by the curls that hung down on both sides of her face. Go away, the green-eyed girl said rudely. I don't have time for you right now, Inner raised an eyebrow in surprise. Not time for me, it's even offensive, the ego said, putting her palm to her right cheek. You don't pay enough attention to me. All this attention goes to Naruto, who annoyed you so much with his jokes and pick-up lines. I said, go away. I may have changed my mind about Naruto. Completely. So don't judge me, Haruno said irritably. I'm not judging you, I'm warning you. Don't you think you've fallen in love with this Naruto? His current, more mature character began to manifest itself even before he revealed to us that he came from the future. And in the future, he will become a real handsome guy. You like Naruto from the future precisely because he behaves like an adult, sensibly, that he is very strong and is able to knock out even Kakashi, that he is very nice and kind to you, and does not try to pick on you somehow. When this Naruto leaves the past, and he will, the same reckless blockhead will return, who will pester you again, irritate you. And now, you ask this Naruto who he likes in the future. What if he thinks about who he really likes and it turns out to be not you, but, say, the same shy Hinata who loves Naruto? And, you know, he began to treat you differently. Don't you think that he fell out of love with Tei? Sakura-chan, are you okay? Uzumaki asked worriedly, looking at the pink-haired girl. The girl suddenly raised her head at him and slowly nodded, then turned and began to leave the room. The blue-eyed man looked at the sensei in confusion, and he looked away at the door and again returned it to Naruto, indicating that the guy should catch up with the green-eyed girl. Naruto, without hesitation, ran out of the room. Uzumaki left the house onto the porch and began to look around, looking for Sakura. The guy went down the porch and went around the house, where he found the girl. She sat on a wooden pier, hugging her knees, and looked ahead sadly with a hint of thoughtfulness. The blonde headed towards her. The pink-haired girl, hearing the steps, instinctively turned her head and, realizing who had come to her, blushed slightly, turning away completely. The blue-eyed man sat down next to Haruno, which somewhat surprised the girl and made her look at the guy in surprise. He, in turn, was watching the lazy clouds. The green-eyed girl returned her gaze to the ground, resting her head on her knees. How are you? The guy asked, not taking his eyes off the sky. Everything is fine, the kunoichi answered. The blonde glanced at her with distrust. Sakura-chan, you know that you can trust me. Tell me, the girl only blushed even more, covering her face with curls of hair so that the blush on her cheeks was not noticeable. Come on, Haruno, this is Naruto, you can really trust him. Tell me how you fell head over heels in love with him and why you are sad because of it. Leave me alone. Sakura-chan, the pink-haired girl turned her head, meeting the gaze of blue eyes. The blonde watched the kunoichi's actions. It seemed that there was nowhere to blush anymore, but no. Sakura broke all records. She abruptly turned to the guy and wanted to get up, but slipped and, having stumbled, began to fall. True, she never touched the pieces of wood. The blonde didn't let her. Haruno closed her eyes, realizing that soon there would be a far from pleasant sensation, but when she realized that the danger had passed, she opened her emerald eyes. Uzumaki held the girl by the waist with one hand and by the elbow with the other. What's wrong with you, Sakura-chan? With this behavior, you remind me of Hinata. The girl looked at the guy uncertainly and, frowning sharply, removed the blue-eyed man's hands, taking a step back. I'm not scared by your unexpected appearance in front of me. I don't stutter when I try to talk to you. And I don't follow your every step. Naruto widened his eyes in surprise, but then suddenly narrowed them so that he looked like a real fox, making a satisfied grin. The guy approached the frowning girl. Really? I didn't know Hinata was stalking me. How did you find out? Sakura suddenly widened her eyes, blushing slightly, and looked at Naruto. Made a face, damn you. Watch out, don't faint from an excess of feelings, said inner Sakura. The kunoichi put her palm in front of herself. The genin looked behind her at the girl's face in surprise. Seriously, Sakura-chan, what's wrong with you? Naruto, I have a question for you, but promise not to laugh and answer honestly, said the pink-haired girl, looking sideways at Uzumaki. The guy raised his right eyebrow in surprise and, smiling, answered. I promise. The girl swallowed. Naruto, in the future, what are you doing here? Both the guy and the girl looked back in surprise, where they saw a small boy. Damn, Sakura clenched her fists, looking away in annoyance. The blonde smiled imperceptibly. Long time no see, Inari. Hi, I'm Naruto. What's your name? The guy extended his hand to the boy in greeting, but the boy didn't extend his in return. I don't need new acquaintances. I asked a question. Uzumaki looked at the boy in surprise for a few seconds, then looked at the clearly irritated Sakura. We talked. Do you mind? The brunette snorted and turned away. All sorts of half-baked ninjas walk around here, the boy said, leaving the guys. The blonde looked sadly after the departing Inari, until Haruno began to speak. How rude. You were so kind to him. With all your heart. And he. Sakura-chan, calm down. Everything is fine, I'm not angry or offended by him, and I don't advise you to be either. The girl blinked her eyelashes in surprise and nodded her head. We should think about how to put Zabuza down now. You know, I'm even glad that he's alive. What? Why? Because in some sense I didn't change the sequence of events in the past, but I wouldn't want Zabuza to die. But, why do you say that? He's a mercenary. He's a killer. He's ellipsis. A shinobi, the blue-eyed man finished for the girl. Sakura blinked in surprise, realizing that Naruto was right. Not only Zabuza, she, Naruto, and Sasuke were also shinobi, they would have to kill someday, no matter how much they wanted to. Although, Naruto was from the future. He'd probably seen a lot already and killed more than once. According to his words, he came straight back from the war. It's terrible. How much suffering, blood, and dead people had he seen? So, what did you want to ask, Sakura-chan? Haruno widened her eyes and blushed, then threw her hand behind her head and started giggling. Nothing important. Forget it. Ah ha 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 ha. The blonde raised his eyebrows in surprise, shrugging. Then maybe we should go back home. Why yeah, sure. Today you will learn to climb trees, Kakashi announced, standing with the help of crutches between the trees on a small clearing in the forest. This somewhat surprised Sakura and Sasuke, and Naruto felt nostalgic. Not just like that, but without using your hands, the man said, briefly letting go of the crutches, with an obvious smile on his lips. Does he really enjoy the thought that his students will soon suffer from fatigue? How is that possible? Sakura exclaimed, looking at the trees from bottom to top. Like this. Naruto, do you mind? The guy nodded, approaching the nearest tree, after which he began to walk up it without any problems, as if it were a boulevard. Both Sakura and even Sasuke watched this technique with delight. Naruto stopped on one of the lower branches, standing upside down. Something like that, the guy said, smiling embarrassedly. He then bounced off the branch, doing a somersault in the air, and landed on his feet on the ground. In order to walk like that, you need to be able to concentrate chakra in the right parts of the body, namely, in this case, in the legs. If you master this technique, then other jutsu will be easier for you. Concentrate chakra in your legs, focus on the tree and go ahead, said the Junin, watching the students. After several attempts, Sakura still managed to climb the nearest branch, which did not please Sasuke, who had previously climbed a tree slightly higher than 2 meters. The day was already approaching evening and Inari came into the forest for the team. Coldly peering out from under his Panama hat, the boy said, "Dinner is ready. Go to the table," after which he went back into the house. "Well, nothing can be done. Send us back to the house while the food is hot. And you can rest, regain your strength." "I'm not going," said Sasuke, standing with his back to everyone. The guys turned to the brunette in surprise. "I won't go to dinner until I've walked at least half a tree." But Sasuke-kun, you need to recuperate, you've used up a lot of chakra." "Sakura, I've already said everything. Go without me." "I'll stay," Naruto suddenly said, crossing his arms over his chest, after which surprised glances turned in his direction. "Why would you even stay if you can walk through trees perfectly?" The kunoichi exclaimed in bewilderment. "I wasn't going to train this technique. I'll just help Sasuke finish faster." Haruno and Hatake blinked in surprise, after which the ash-haired man said, "Alright then, how-ho. You don't need to help me. I'll manage just fine without you." The Uchiha exclaimed. Uzumaki looked at the brunette irritably. "Without me, you won't be able to reach me even until the middle of the week." "I know, I'm from the future." The genin widened his eyes in surprise, then turned back to the tree with a hint of resentment in his gaze. "Oh okay, alright, I'll take your word for it." Kakashi let out a relaxed breath, then wished the guys good luck and went to dinner with Sakura. "So how are you going to help me?" Sasuke asked, embarrassed that Naruto was helping him, who always needed his help. Uzumaki, still standing with his arms crossed over his chest, looked at the Uchiha, then walked up to him and extended his right hand. The brunette raised his eyebrows in surprise, looking up from his hand to the blonde. "First, I'll give you some of my chakra." Actually, I really have almost no chakra left in. What you're offering won't be enough for me, and if you give more, you might die." "No, don't worry about the amount of chakra." "Why?" the shinobi asked in surprise. "Well, I'm a Jinchuriki." Sasuke raised an eyebrow in confusion. I remember you talking about it back then, at the river. But I have no idea what it is. That's exactly why I was hated in the village. Then you'll find out who they are. For a moment the blonde's gaze became sad and he looked away for a few seconds. Smiling softly, he returned to Sasuke, extending his hand even more. The brunette also extended his in response, then they both became covered in a bluish glow and the Uchiha began to feel a huge surge of strength. He realized that he had fully recovered and looked in horror at Naruto, who stood as if nothing had happened and was also smiling. I think what you gave me is enough, the black-eyed man said, letting go of the blonde's hand. Are you feeling well? The shinobi shrugged. As usual, Sasuke's eyes began to widen. How huge is your chakra volume? The Uzumaki only awkwardly threw his hand behind his head. I told you not to worry about it. So, you've recovered, shall we continue? The brunette nodded decisively and turned to the nearest tree. Making a hand seal and squeezing the kunai tighter, the guy tried to reach the middle of the tree, but again nothing happened. And there were only a few centimeters left. Remember what Kakashi-sensei said, concentrate chakra in your legs and don't think about anything except the tree. The Uchiha nodded and tried again, and he succeeded, even further than the middle, about 3 meters. Having marked the place on the bark that he could reach, the brunette jumped to the ground and smiled triumphantly. Shall we go to dinner or do you want to continue and reach the very top? The blue-eyed man asked, narrowing his eyes slyly. Sasuke smiled easily. Since it turned out to be above the middle, I want to reach the very top. That's how it is. As you approach it, I'll wait for you next to me, the blonde smiled. So they spent the whole evening without having dinner. Sasuke was almost at the top, but his muscles were cramping from fatigue, his legs were buzzing, his side was stabbing, and his stomach was asking for its portion, growling throughout the forest, which made its owner blush. That was where the guys finished. Returning home, they found that everyone had gone to bed. Sakura was sitting at the table in the kitchen. More precisely, she was sleeping on the table. Apparently, she was waiting for the guys, but fatigue got the better of her. Sasuke quietly took his portion and went to the room, wishing Naruto good night. Uzumaki was in no hurry to go to bed. He carefully picked up Sakura in his arms and carried her to her room. In her sleep, the girl slightly squeezed the blonde's jacket on her chest and quietly said, Naruto. The blue-eyed man looked at the pink-haired girl in surprise, thinking that he woke up the kunoichi, but her eyes were closed. Exhaling, the guy went to the girl's room, also carefully laid her on the futon and covered her with a blanket. Suddenly, the girl, squeezing the guy's jacket in her palm again, said, Don't go. The guy blushed slightly and carefully removed the girl's hand from his jacket, then left the room, quietly closing the door behind him. It's strange, Sakura said, sitting at the table waiting for breakfast. What's strange? Tazuna asked, accepting his portion and picking up a fork. Yesterday I sat in the kitchen until late and waited for Sasuke-kun and Naruto to return, and apparently fell asleep. But woke up in the room, on the futon. Sasuke glanced quickly at Naruto, who was cowering. And also, the girl fell silent, then began to widen her eyes and blush deeply, looking at the portion that had just been served to her. Everyone raised their eyebrows in surprise, looking at the kunoichi. And, also, the carpenter tried to help her continue. The green-eyed girl quickly shook her head, picking up a fork. Nothing. Enjoy your meal. The Uchiha looked suspiciously at Haruno, and then turned his gaze back to Uzumaki. He looked straight at the pink-haired girl for a few seconds, after which his eyes also widened and he blushed slightly. What happened between them yesterday? The brunette thought, raising an eyebrow in confusion. So, surprise me, Sasuke, Kakashi said, standing in the same place in the forest. The black-eyed man nodded, then folded his hand seals and began to run along the tree. Having passed the middle and almost reached the top, the brunette made a mark, also noticing that he climbed a little higher today than yesterday, and jumped back to the ground. Well done, you're making progress. There's very little left until you conquer this trunk. You'll also be training today. What should we do, sensei? Sakura asked. Well, Naruto can train so that his muscles don't stagnate, and you. I think you can too. Although, you should practice concentrating chakra in other parts of the body. For example, in your hands for a stronger blow, Uzumaki immediately said. Haruno nodded and immediately began to concentrate. I would like to see what you are capable of now, because I am sure that you are capable of more than rasengan, Hatake smiled. You know about rasengan, I learned and continue to learn to create it in other, new forms. I also have my own technique. It is a combo of rasengan and my element, wind. I also learned 4 different modes: hermit, kyubi, biju and rakudo. In general, basically, that's it, the blonde smiled. Kakashi widened his eyes in shock. And you still surpassed me. And not badly, the sensei smiled again, proudly looking at Uzumaki. Sakura listened to the guy with delight and with the same delight asked him to show at least one of the modes. However, the blue-eyed one refused. Sasuke froze in front of the tree, doing nothing. After listening to the blonde, he suddenly began to understand how weak he was now. Although, it is not a fact that those modes are of such colossal power, right? But he mentioned the Rakudo mode. And, as far as we know, Rakudo is the sage of the 6 paths. Will he be able to become the creator of the shinobi world in the future? The brunette slowly turned around, looking at the genin with horror. Maybe now he looks like a reasonable person, but in fact he is a real idiot. How could such a thing come out of him? The Uchiha was perplexed. Noticing that the Junin returned to observing the student, the black-eyed man again continued training. Naruto, knowing about a small river nearby, went to it. The kunoichi, concentrating several times, tried to concentrate the chakra in her palms, namely in her fists, as the Jinchuriki said. After several failed attempts, she quietly slipped away from the sensei, heading towards Uzumaki. What if he was training in one of the modes right now? She couldn't miss that. The girl, hiding in the bushes, quietly peeked out from behind them, trying to find Naruto with her eyes. Oh, his clothes, a jacket and a t-shirt. And he himself. The pink-haired girl raised her gaze a little higher and noticed Uzumaki sitting on a rock in the middle of the river and meditating. Firstly, there was definitely no rock there. Secondly, he was topless and he was super pumped up. Haruno instantly blushed, covering her mouth and nose with her hands. Having calmed down, the kunoichi again turned her attention to the guy. He slightly raised his head and tried to listen. Damn. The girl tried to sit, even breathe quietly, lower than water, lower than the grass. Uzumaki relaxed again, continuing his meditation. Sakura breathed out in relief, and then, Sakura-chan, what are you doing here? The Jinchuriki asked with an indifferent expression, standing behind the pink-haired girl. She screamed, jumping away from the shinobi a meter further and pressing herself against the bushes. Naruto, I'm training, and what are you doing here? The girl asked, stuttering, blushing deeply. She turned her head slightly to the side and looked at the stone where the blonde had been. The genin was still there, but then suddenly disappeared. A clone. When did he have time? Uzumaki crossed his arms over his chest and raised an eyebrow skeptically. I was training too, until I sensed the presence of another chakra, and then I heard a noise in the bushes. And I still call myself a ninja. The kunoichi mentally scolded herself. I see. I knew it. I knew you would train in one of the modes. What can you do in this mode? Will you show me the others? Which mode is the most powerful? The pink-haired girl continued to attack with new questions until the Jinchuriki stopped her. Sakura-chan, let's satisfy your curiosity a little, okay? The girl stepped back a little, pouting her lips offendedly. The blonde squatted down. Well, don't be offended at me, you understand everything perfectly well yourself. The pink-haired girl turned her gaze to the guy, realized that it was in vain, because now he was infinitely cute, blushed deeply and turned away completely. Why yes, I understand. Okay, I'll go, I won't distract you, the kunoichi smiled, leaving the blue-eyed man. It was easier than I thought, Uzumaki said into the void. Yeah, now can I congratulate you, boy? Kurama said, looking at the bewilderment on the face of his Jinchuriki. What are you talking about? What should I congratulate you on? The girl you've had a crush on since you were little has finally fallen for you. It's as clear as day, Kyubi said with a slight mockery. What do you mean? The blonde's eyes suddenly widened sharply, and he went straight to Kurama's cage, into his subconscious. Literally, you idiot. You've already changed the past in so many ways. It was already changed when you showed off in front of your sensei and Uchiha your ability to wield the rasengan and change it in your own way. And then you suddenly became an adult, you idiot, you told him about the war, about what you can do now, and even made the poor girl fall in love with you. How naive do you have to be to fall in love with such a blockhead? God, shame on you, the demon said, putting his paw to his muzzle. Naruto fell silent, staring ahead tensely. Damn, what have I done? Partly it's not your fault, because you suddenly became an adult against your will. If that hadn't happened, the situation could still be changed in the right direction, but now it's not. Accept it. When we return, the war may continue, maybe Madara will win, or maybe there will be peace, and so on. I think you're right, but the second option clearly doesn't suit me. Naruto. Lunch. The teacher's voice was suddenly heard from afar, thereby tearing Uzumaki out of his subconscious. Okay, then he'll talk to Kurama some more. The Jinchuriki got dressed, ran to his team, and then into the house. Inari didn't even touch his food during lunch. He stared intently at Sakura, who was studying a torn photo in a frame on the wall. What he definitely didn't want was the question of who and why is the photo torn in this place. Who is this person? She asked. Tazuna looked down sadly and said, "This man is a real hero who saved our village." For Inari, Inari suddenly stood up from the table, hitting it with his hand, which attracted everyone's attention, and said, "It's useless." All eyes instantly turned to the boy. "What?" Naruto said with confusion in his eyes. "It's useless. Your training is useless. Gato has an army and he's much stronger than you. I've already seen for myself, the weak can never defeat the strong." The young man repeated with tears in his eyes. Naruto irritably drew his eyebrows together and crossed his arms over his chest. "So what?" Uzumaki said. Now the surprised looks turned to the blonde. "An army of small mercenaries. We'll figure it out in a jiffy. Stronger than us. With what? Gato is a coward who hides behind other people's backs, only able to throw money around. You may be weak in body, but if your spirit and will to win are strong, then even the weak can win." "You're not hell right." The blue-eyed boy became more irritated. "Father. Stepfather. My stepfather was strong in both body and spirit. But in the end, he still died. And he died at the hands of Gato. He was always kind not only to me, to everyone." Always smiling, the boy clenched his fists tightly, trying to hold back the tears pouring from his eyes. Even when he was beaten and tied to a pole on the scaffold, he continued to smile. "You don't understand what it's like to lose someone close. As if you're alone in the whole world." The creaking of a wooden chair on the floor was heard. Uzumaki put his hands in his pants pockets. "Crybaby Inari," the guy grinned, after which he calmly left the house, which somewhat surprised the boy with his mother and grandfather. Sakura immediately reacted. "Naruto, it's not worth it. Let him go. He needs to be alone." Kakashi stopped her. The girl relaxed and looked worriedly at the door through which the blonde had just left. Inari's tear-stained eyes were covered by his Panama hat. The boy clenched his fists and also ran out of the house. "There you are," said the Junin who had approached the boy. "What do you want?" the boy asked in an angry voice. Hitaki looked at the brunette for a few seconds, and then turned his gaze to the starry sky. "Tazuna-san told us about the tragedy that happened to your father. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you. Don't hold a grudge against Naruto. He understands you like no one else." Inari looked at the shinobi in surprise. "What are you talking about?" Hitaki's coal-black eyes were now looking at the young man. "He's been alone since birth. He doesn't know what it's like to have a father or a mother. The villagers avoid him. He has a rather sad past, but he was able to survive all these misfortunes." Smiling widely, the man said, returning to the sky again. "He always smiles and is eager to fight. Wants to be respected. This is his dream. He would easily risk his life for it. I think he is tired of crying. I have never seen him cry or complain. He is strong. He took his fate into his own hands." The boy listened attentively to Kakashi and lowered his head again. It was as if a lump had formed inside, squeezing the brunette. These unpleasant sensations had appeared. He, knowing absolutely nothing, was crying and complaining about his difficult fate to a person whose fate was many times harder. And the guy's behavior did not evoke sympathy, but pity. Inari rose from the ground, tightly clenching his hands into fists. The Junin watched the boy in surprise. "Thank you. Now I understand. I will apologize to Naruto, no, to everyone, tomorrow for my behavior. And now, perhaps, I'll go to bed," the brunette said, turned around and ran towards the door of the house. Hitaki grinned, remaining in the same place and dreamily looking at the bright stars. "Tsunami-san, we will take Mr. Tazuna to the construction site. Naruto is still asleep. I don't think anything extreme will happen, so let him stay here," the ash-haired man warned as he left the house with the incomplete team and the carpenter. The woman in the kitchen only nodded briefly and smiled. The team moved toward the unfinished bridge with a clear conscience. The guys arrived at the site and froze in horror. The entire brigade was beaten, and someone was even dead. Oh my god, who could have done this? The builder panicked. Mr. Tazuna, calm down and stand in the center of the line, the Junin said, taking out a kunai. The man nodded and obediently took the place assigned to him. Still, not taking Naruto with you was a mistake. A thick fog began to move in from the unfinished end of the bridge, blinding even the large objects that were very close. He's alive after all, the shinobi said anxiously. A malicious laugh was heard from the fog. Sasuke jerked, turning around at the sound, and Zabuza immediately appeared before the guy in all his glory. Haku stood next to him, still wearing the same mask. You're shaking. Did I really scare you that much? Sakura and Kakashi also turned around at Momochi's voice, while Hatake held out a kunai at eye level. The Uchiha also grinned, causing puzzled looks from the side. I'm shaking with impatience, looking straight into the eyes of the missing nin, the brunette said. He was able to see me in such a fog. Hey, commendable. Well, if you're so eager to die, I'll start. After these words, Momochi and Haku disappeared into the fog. Uzumaki abruptly opened his blue eyes, jumping up from the futon. Having looked around and not found his friends in bed, the guy got up and went downstairs, where he found only Tsunami cooking something in the kitchen. Good morning, Tsunami-san, the blonde greeted. The woman turned around. Good, Naruto, she smiled. Where is everyone? The Jinchuriki asked, looking around. Your friends went to the construction site with my dad, and Inari is most likely in her room, she answered. Uzumaki, remembering the boy and yesterday evening, looked worriedly somewhere in front of him. Tsunami, noticing this, decided to cheer the guy up. Your friends said not to worry. You can take a walk, you have a day off today. Thank you, the guy smiled, after which he went back upstairs. Left completely alone in the room, Naruto quickly changed his clothes and ran out of the house, heading for the bridge. If only it's not too late. If only it's not too late. The blue-eyed man repeated constantly, accelerating. Suddenly his gaze was drawn to a cut-up boar in the forest. The blonde stopped and the realization completely overwhelmed him. How could I forget? Inari. The genin exclaimed and rushed back home even faster. Inari, help me, darling, Tsunami's thin voice was heard. I'm coming, Mom. Two men with katanas stopped in front of the door to the house. One was wearing a hat and jacket, and the other had an eye patch over his right eye and a scar above his left eyebrow. Both grinned unkindly. Naruto, meanwhile, was almost at the house. Damn, I probably didn't make it in time. No, 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 the guy thought in panic, pushing off a tree branch so hard that he broke the last one. The team was surrounded by Zabuza's water clones. Each one was ready to attack at the original's command. Sasuke, was all the Junin said. The Uchiha nodded. A moment later, a small wind formed around the clones, cries were heard one after another, after which everyone again became water, and the brunette silently returned to his position. There was a deathly silence, and the wind formed by Sasuke dispersed the fog a little. Two figures became visible in the distance, Zabuza and Haku. It looks like my assumptions were spot on, Kakashi exhaled. Assumptions? Momochi asked without moving a single muscle. About that kid in the mask. Yes, as we thought, the Uchiha agreed. Leave him to me, the brunette said firmly. He played out that cheap show. I hate such rare scoundrels more than anything in the world. Sakura shuddered. Sasuke-kun is so cool. Why didn't I say it out loud? I wanted to. The girl put her hands to her cheeks. I don't feel like I'm blushing. I don't recognize myself. Did I really? Abandon Sasuke-kun, the pink-haired girl thought worriedly, looking sideways at the brunette. Impressive, kid, even though the water clones have a tenth of the original strength. Nevertheless, you dealt with them alone, and so quickly. I didn't think you'd succeed, Haku said. However, we made the first move. Forward, Momochi ordered coldly, to which his partner nodded. Haku took a step, turning slightly, then another and another, causing the guy to spin like a top. The brown-haired man was pointing towards Uchiha, who grabbed the kunai tighter, smiling in anticipation. The wall of the house collapsed in pieces that looked more like huge cubes. Tsunami, with horror in her eyes, turned around sharply, seeing two men with katanas. They slowly entered the house. The one in the hat asked. Are you Tazuna's daughter? I'm sorry, but you'll have to come with us. Inari, who was in the bath, did not foresee anything dangerous, but hearing the sounds of things breaking and shattering into pieces, as well as his mother's piercing scream, the young man, forgetting about everything, rushed down the stairs, straight towards the sounds. Having gone down, the brunette saw those two samurai who, having cornered the woman, were simply taking and smashing plates on the floor. Tsunami clutched her head tightly and pulled her legs towards her, closing her eyes in fear. Mommy! Inari shouted in panic. The woman, hearing her son's cry, suddenly opened her eyes wide, rising from the floor and looking anxiously at the brown-eyed man. Don't stick your head out, she shouted. Run away from here quickly. The samurai perked up. The man with the eye patch asked in a bass voice. What do you want, kid? The boy didn't answer. Maybe we should take him with us too, the samurai asked, turning to his partner. It's better if there's only one hostage, he replied. The brunette partially hid behind the wall of the room, looking at his opponents in horror. A hostage. So, the man with the patch began, raising his katana to eye level and slightly removing it from its sheath. Should we kill him? The man grinned maliciously. Inari shuddered and hid even more behind the wall. Wait. Both samurai froze, looking over their shoulders at the woman. Just try to raise a hand to this child. I'll bite my tongue off and die. Tears poured from the boy's eyes. You need a hostage, right? Tsunami said, looking menacingly at the one in the hat. The samurai grinned, and the second one put the katana back in its sheath. Thank your mother, boy, said the samurai in the jacket. Inari sank to the floor, exhausted, continuing to sob. The samurai tied the blue-haired girl tightly and began to slowly lead her out of the house through the hole they had made in the wall. Mommy, forgive me, the young man repeated without stopping crying. I am weak and that's why I can't protect you. Tsunami continued to walk in step with the samurai. I don't want to die. Drops of tears completely wet one of the boy's hands. I'm scared. A drop of a tear fell on the floor. Crybaby Inari. The boy raised his head sharply. I think he's tired of crying. I've never seen him cry or complain. He's strong. He took his fate into his own hands. The boy looked at his palms with a detached expression. You must protect what is dear to you with both of your hands. Even if it costs you your life. Dad. Inari. Mom. The boy wiped the tears from his eyes. I wonder, will I be able to become strong someday too? The brunette said, getting up from the floor. The boy clenched his fists tightly, looking forward with determination. Father. The samurai paused. The man with the bandage leaned slightly towards Tsunami. When I look at your beautiful skin, I just want to cut it, he said with a satisfied face. The samurai in the jacket hissed irritably, pulling the rope towards himself so that the blue-haired girl almost fell. We don't have time, he said. Stop, someone exclaimed from behind. Both turned around, seeing Inari. Inari, the mother exclaimed. What, that kid again or something? The man with the bandage grinned. Get away from my mom. The young man exclaimed, quickly heading straight for the samurai. Well, it looks like there's nothing we can do about him, the man with the bandage said sadly, taking out his katana. Let's finish him off, the man in the hat chimed in. Tsunami, in despair, did not understand what she could do, what she could say, to protect her stupid son. The woman looked nervously from one samurai to the other. You'll do it too. The blue-haired girl is hit in the carotid artery and she falls unconscious. Shut up and sleep, the samurai in the jacket said again. The boy is almost next to the men. They take out their katanas and swing them at the same time. Sasuke, with all the strength of his left hand, held back an equally powerful attack from Haku with a kunai. Ooh, can he notice such speed? Zabuza thought impressed. Sakura, stand next to Tazuna-san and don't leave him. The girl immediately accepted the order, standing right in front of the carpenter with a kunai in her hand. We'll leave Haku for Sasuke. Both the brown-haired man and the Uchiha suddenly pulled away from each other, turning around and meeting weapon to weapon again. I don't want to kill you, but you won't retreat, will you? Asked the shinobi in the mask. Don't play dumb, the brunette replied. That's what I thought, Haku said, pressing harder on the senbon. But you can't keep up with my speed. Besides, I have two advantages. Two advantages? The first, the water spilled around, the boy said, paying attention to the water left by Zabuza's clones. The second, I occupied one of your hands. Now you'll be able to defend yourself from my attacks with only one hand, the boy said, quickly making seals with his left hand. What? He's doing this with just one hand? The stunned Uchiha thought. Seals with one hand? This is the first time I've seen this. The ash-haired man thought, frozen in place from shock. Secret technique. Flight of 1,000 deadly waters, the brown-haired man said, kicking his left foot on the wet surface of the bridge. The water slowly rose above the young men. Huh, doesn't want to kill. Maybe I misheard, thought Momochi. The water from a shapeless liquid suddenly turned into the sharpest needles, one tip heading straight for the brunette. Sasuke closed his eyes and brought his hand with the sheep seal closer to his face. The index and middle fingers are pressed against each other and completely straightened, the rest are bent and pressed to the palm. Remember that training, the brunette thought, telling himself. Immediately activate the chakra. The needles slowly began to move. The Uchiha suddenly opened his eyes and the needles instantly flew at him. Inari's Panama hat soared into the air, giving into the flow of wind and slowly falling to the ground. The samurai sheathed their katanas, turning to look at the boy's bloody body, but instead they saw a cut log. Body replacement technique. The samurai in the hat was surprised. Both began to nervously look around, holding onto the handles of their katanas. Could it really be that woman? The one with the eye patch suggested. Sorry I'm late, Inari. Tsunami-san. The men turned towards the voice, seeing Naruto slowly lowering the unconscious body of the woman and the boy to the ground. The brunette, seeing Naruto, smiled widely, and his eyes seemed to sparkle. Brother Naruto, the young man exclaimed joyfully. You tried well, Inari, the guy smiled. You managed to distract those guys, so I managed to save your mother. The boy sighed in relief, looking at Tsunami. But, how did you know that those samurai came here? In the forest, I saw a boar cut up with a katana, and everything around was cut up. All the tracks led here, so I immediately started to return. Hey, isn't that the kid from Team Hatake? Asked the one with the armband. Right, too old for a genin, which means he stayed for the second year of training a million times, the one with the hat chimed in. So we'll finish quickly, continued the first one. Both stuck out their katanas and moved towards Naruto. They're coming, exclaimed Inari. Naruto stood up and turned to the enemies. Awaiting your fate? Asked the samurai in the jacket proudly. When both men were at a sufficient distance from Uzumaki, the latter suddenly covered himself in golden chakra and stopped the blows of the katanas with huge paws made of the same chakra. The samurai froze in bewilderment, looking in shock at Naruto and his fiery cloak fluttering in the wind. Then the guy, already with his own hands, created two small tail bombs, slowly brought them to the stomachs of the puzzled and shocked men and touched them with the technique. Both, looking at each other, suddenly felt pain and slightly twisted. And then a powerful wave of chakra, knocking them off their feet, and the men flew off at the speed of light somewhere for several kilometers, breaking the wall of the house and, judging by the sounds, breaking a new passage already inside the room. Cool, the boy exclaimed admiringly, turning to the blue-eyed man. Of course, the blonde smiled broadly, leaving the Biju mode. The needles were rapidly approaching the Uchiha from all sides. Concentrate your chakra in your legs, in your legs. The needles fell on their opponents with a powerful blow. Haku jumped back, sliding on the water. A small veil of smoke formed where he and Sasuke had been standing. Looking up, Haku was surprised by the absence of the brunette in the same place. He disappeared, was all the shinobi said. Looking up, the guy noticed the Uchiha, who had pulled out shurikens. The first, second, third, Haku was able to dodge them all. Sasuke suddenly appeared from behind. From now on, you will only defend yourself from my attacks, after which he swung his kunai, but then the brown-haired man also successfully dodged. Then the black-eyed man swung for another blow, but the mist ninja blocked the blow with his left hand. Desetsu dodged again, noticing the kunai in time, which the brunette was hiding behind his attacking left hand. The genin threw the weapon straight and precisely at the enemy's head. Haku ducked to dodge, but the Uchiha attacked him with his left foot, hitting him directly in the mask, in the face, after which the brown-haired man flew away from the guy several meters, landing almost at Zabuza's feet. For Haku to lose in speed, Momochi said quietly, raising his gaze from Haku to Sasuke. Be that as it may, I win in speed, the Uchiha said. It seems you underestimated my squad, Hatake grinned. Sasuke is the strongest of the newcomers in Konoha. And Sakura is the most beautiful, the girl smiled shyly. And what about that boy, the blonde one? Zabuza's eyes narrowed and a spark of curiosity ran through them. Kakashi widened his eyes. Naruto. He is too old and strong for the squad that he is now. What will happen if Zabuza finds out that Naruto is from the future? There are only 2 genin in my squad. The third one failed the test I had prepared and returned to the academy. And this guy is replacing me as commander. The ash-haired man really hoped that this idea would work. Momochi drawled. I guess I should be wary of him, because I've seen what he's capable of. So, Zabuza turned the thug into a position convenient for attack. It's to my advantage that he's not here right now. The blonde sneezed. Got a cold? Inari asked worriedly. No, everything's fine, Uzumaki answered, glancing over his shoulder at the tied-up samurai. Listen, Inari, forgive me for yesterday. I didn't mean to offend you in any way. No, the brunette exclaimed, shocking Naruto. I mean, I'm the one who should be apologizing. I really lost my temper. And you didn't offend me at all, I just refused to believe that everything would work out. But now, the boy looked resolutely at the Jinchuriki. I'm sure Gato will get what's his. Naruto's eyes gleamed in surprise and the guy smiled widely, then put his hand on the boy's head and said, You're strong. Inari sobbed. Naruto was surprised and removed his hand from the boy's head, seeing how he was trying to hold back uninvited tears. Damn it, the brunette exclaimed, wiping away his tears. I decided that I wouldn't cry anymore. The blonde smiled tenderly. Now Naruto will call me a crybaby again and consider me stupid. What are you talking about? Uzumaki said, looking at the water surface on the horizon. The black-eyed man raised his head in surprise. These are tears of happiness, the blue-eyed man smiled, looking at the boy again. If you're happy, then you can cry. After these words the boy cried even harder. The blonde man turned away from Inari. You can handle this on your own, right? Yes. Then, I have to go to the bridge, Uzumaki said, looking over his shoulder at the brunette, and then began to run towards the bridge. If this continues, we'll have to retreat. You understand that, right? Momochi said irritably. Haku slowly rose to his feet. Yes. Then finish him off. Blue chakra began to gather around the brown-haired man. The Uchiha opened his eyes wide. Is this chakra so cold? Haku made hand seals. Crossing the index and middle fingers on both hands, he pressed his palms together and touched the fingers of his other hand with the same fingers. Secret technique. Mikio Hyosho. A snow pillar began to form behind the brunette, which later became an ice mirror. Such mirrors also formed not only behind, but also around Sasuke. The construction of the mirrors was somewhat reminiscent of the ice house in which the Eskimos live. After all the mirrors were in place, Haku extended his hand to what was in front of him, and his hand literally began to merge with the mirror, becoming an image on the other side. Thus, the brown-haired man completely merged with the mirror and the image that appeared on it began to spread to all the icy surfaces. Now I will show you my true speed, said Deizutsu, and his image on all the mirrors simultaneously took out 2 Senbon. Throw 1, and the Senbon immediately flew from all sides. Sasuke howled in pain. One of the Senbon hit his hand and the brunette let go of the kunai clutched in it, which then flew outside the so-called arena. Sasuke! Kakashi exclaimed, moving towards the arena, but Zabuza instantly appeared in front of him. Let's not interfere with the kids, said the criminal, otherwise I'll finish off those two, the man warned, pointing his gaze at Chizuna and Sakura. Sasuke continued to be attacked by Senbon. It was as if the guy had gotten caught in the rain, where instead of drops of water there were frozen needles of ice. He fell powerlessly to his knees, holding his head in his hands and trying to cover his face with them. Chizuna-san, the pink-haired girl said seriously, I will leave you for a while. Chizuna looked at Haruno for a few seconds, then nodded. Got it. The girl decisively grabbed the kunai that flew out of Sasuke's hands from the arena, piercing the bridge structure right in front of her, and moved towards the boy. Jumping high, Sakura exclaimed. Grab it, Sasuke-kun, and threw the weapon straight to the Uchiha. The brunette opened his eyes slightly, looking in the direction from which the green-eyed girl's voice came. Seeing the kunai approaching the arena, the guy convulsively reached out for the weapon, but it was intercepted by Haku. No, the girl exclaimed. This was the last hope, she thought. The Uchiha lowered his hand and fell to the ground, hugging his wounded torso. The brown-haired man turned the kunai with the tip towards the brunette and was about to attack, when he heard a whistle behind him and, without wasting a minute, turned sharply, after which he received a powerful blow to the face. The mask cracked, but still did not completely collapse. Haku fell out of the mirror, falling to the ground. It was not a weapon, not a shuriken, not a kunai, not anything else. It was air, a stream of scalding air. Surprised glances caught a bright yellow glow from the other side of the arena. As the glow approached, the faces of those present stretched, and their eyes widened. It can't be. This is, thought Deizutsu, looking at the guy standing between the mirrors. Is this That kid, Zabuza also thought. Sakura slowly, as if reflexively, pressed her palms to her chest and quietly said, Naruto. The blonde in Biju mode. His cloak and the elongated fabric of his protector shimmer with fire, mesmerizing and majestic. Sparks emanate from them, dissolving in the air. Uzumaki's eyebrows are drawn together, and his eyes radiate some kind of anger and sadness. Are you okay, Sasuke? The blue-eyed man asked in a serious tone. The Uchiha, who had been watching his friend in shock until then, quietly said, I'm fine. It was noticeable that the blonde relaxed a little, but he immediately entered the arena. Why did you do that, idiot? Uchiha exclaimed. To save you. You understand that I know how. The guy smiled, looking at the genin. Sasuke's widened eyes instantly returned to normal and Uchiha nodded. Naruto turned to Haku, who was about to climb into the mirror. You won't have time, he only said, as Uzumaki was already standing right in front of the brown-haired man, which stunned him to the depths of his soul. Sasuke blinked several times. When did he have time? The others also could not follow the blue-eyed man's movements. Naruto took the Deizutsu by his hand extended to the mirror, lifted him off the ground and threw him out of the arena, which surprised everyone very much. Sakura instantly took her previous position, in front of Tazuna. Now the Jinchuriki walked back to the brunette, crouched down and extended his hand to him. Uchiha, without thinking twice, extended his in response and suddenly he was enveloped in the same golden chakra as Naruto. The volume of chakra grew madly, acquiring some form, after which it became clear to everyone, this is the fox, the nine-tailed demon fox. Kyuubi grew to such a size that all of Haku's mirrors cracked and shattered into pieces, and Zabuza, Kakashi and the others had to move away, which the brown-haired man could not do. He was also absorbed by the golden chakra. Everyone looked expectantly at what would happen next. Sasuke and Naruto were in the Biju's head while Haku was only approaching them, not daring to move. When the Deizutsu was dangerously close to Uzumaki, he extended his hand, clenched his fist and smashed Haku's mask, between the fragments of which his shocked face was clearly visible. Haku, I know you're good. You don't want to kill. You do everything to protect someone close to you. Kakashi and the others raised their eyebrows upon hearing this. He's right. Haku kept warning them during the entire battle that he didn't want this violence and he followed Zabuza's every order, Hatake thought. The brown-haired man's eyes flashed in shock. And you, Zabuza? Uzumaki turned to the missing nin, who, after a short, raised his eyes from Haku to the Jinchuriki. You don't realize that Haku is very dear to you, the guy frowned. Haku is a killing weapon that I created. I taught him everything I know and improved what he already had. Even I can't handle him. He can attack at any moment, and you're so naive in protecting him in this golden chakra, the criminal grinned. And one more thing, I wasn't beaten for nothing in our last battle, Momochi said again, narrowing his eyes. Haku was nearby and observed the nuances of the battle. He is very smart, so with each technique he saw, he looked for ways to counter it. Of course, he saw a similar technique, but this time, it is much more powerful. And in this mode, I can do much more. Oh, well then show what you're capable of, the man said excitedly, after which Haku attacked from the side, but Uzumaki resisted the guy's attack. The blonde broke the Senbons with just one left hand. The brown-haired man was amazed. And when the Jinchuriki looked at the Deizutsu, he was completely speechless. Eyes. The pupil had only been vertical before. And now, it was the intersection of the vertical and horizontal. Who is he? The brown-haired man did not understand. Enough. If you continue like this, then eventually you will both die, the blonde exhaled. Is this a threat? Asked the silent killer. It's a warning, the Jinchuriki narrowed his eyes. And how do you know this, prodigy? I can predict the future, the blue-eyed man grinned, unexpectedly knocking out Haku, hitting him in the carotid artery. And what did this give you? Zabuza asked, puzzled. He won't rush to save you. If he does, he'll die, the blonde sadly said, shifting his gaze from the unconscious body of the brown-haired man to the missing nin. Why do you claim this fact? Are you hinting that you're so strong that no one can handle you? No hints. I just want you to live, the guy said worriedly. It doesn't matter how I know all this, you cannot believe me, because we are enemies, but I am telling the purest truth. Think, Zabuza, how would you feel if Haku died? And died protecting you? Even through the mask of bandages, it was clear that Momochi was smiling, and the longer you looked at him, the clearer it was that the smile was getting wider. Absolutely nothing, the Jinchuriki's eyes narrowed. As I said earlier, Haku is just a weapon for killing, he is a shinobi. How many of them died before us? Countless. If Haku dies, what difference does it make? One more, one less. There are still thousands like him. You're wrong. You're so mistake. Naruto started screaming, which worried his friends and Tazuna. There are 1 in 10 million people like Haku. Even in these cruel times, he remains incredibly kind. Haku's dream is for your dreams to come true. The missing nin's eyes slowly widened. He's ready to sacrifice the life you gave him for the second time for them. Momochi's hands trembled slightly. You are the most dear person to him, you damn bastard, and he has no one else but you. A drop fell from his eyes. Sasuke looked up in surprise, noticing wet tear tracks on the Jinchuriki's cheeks. To experience this for the second time, and if you count the war, then for the third time, is unbearable, the blonde said so that only the Uchiha could hear. The brunette nodded understandingly, and concern was reflected on his face. Haku loves you. You are everything to him. Shut up already. The missing nin also started shouting. I know all of this. Unexpectedly, but tears also ran from Zabuza's eyes, reaching his chin, and then falling on the bridge structure. Haku really is too kind. Even when fighting you, he tried not to harm you. I lied. He is also dear to me. The Kyuubi from the chakra began to gradually dissolve in the air. Naruto with Haku in his arms and Sasuke sank to the ground. The Jinchuriki took a step forward. Zabuza abruptly tore his gaze away from the bridge, raising his head. Uzumaki confidently walked towards the man, stopping in front of him a meter away. Then take care of him. Don't make a killing machine, continue to build the noble ninja that Haku himself started, the blonde said, slightly stretching out his hands with the brown-haired man. Zabuza slowly raised his hands, lightly touching the Dizutsu with trembling fingers, then grabbed it tightly from Uzumaki. Boy, what kind of person are you? A few minutes ago I felt like a ruthless shinobi, ready to kill any of you, and now I'm standing here. And crying, like the last weakling. Zabuza, believe me, you are the strongest person I've ever known. Suddenly, clapping sounds were heard from the side. The ninja, as one, turned around in surprise at the sound. Bravo. Very touching, said a nasty male voice. You turned out to be so worthless and sentimental, Zabuza. I'm even ashamed to say your name. Gato. Naruto hissed angrily. Ooh, easy, I'm the only one who can bite here, the man said confidently, pointing to the huge crowd of armed mercenaries behind him. You wouldn't be such a vanilla freak now if it weren't for this kid, Momochi, Gato said, pointing his cane at the brown-haired man in the hands of the missing nin, and recoiled in disgust. Son of a bitch, I'll kill you, exclaimed the silent killer, tearing the bandages from his mouth with his teeth. You scared me, well done, the dwarf grinned. Try it, if you want to, he said, going deeper into the crowd. Just as Zabuza was about to leave Haku for a while, Naruto grabbed him by the shoulder. Let me do it, the blonde said, looking resolutely at the huge crowd of criminals. I have to do it, Momochi snapped. Try it and they'll stick spears and swords in your back, and then you'll die of blood loss, leaving Haku all alone. Again, the Jinchuriki said in a trembling voice. Zabuza's eyes widened. He looked at Uzumaki for a few seconds. And you, are you sure you can handle it yourself, hero? Otherwise, they will mourn you, the blonde grinned. I have dealt with a crowd worse than this, he answered, remembering the war, after which he abruptly entered Biju mode again and the nine-tailed demon fox appeared before the crowd. The mercenaries took a frightened step back, earning Gato's angry tirades. But Naruto, completely ignoring the crowd, reached out with Kurama's paw towards Gato at the other end of the bridge. The mercenaries reacted instantly, throwing spears and trying to chop off the demon's paw. It was all useless. The paw approached the man, who frantically waved it away with his cane. Kurama grabbed the dwarf and brought him closer to his muzzle, where Naruto was. No, don't touch me, you fools. Why the hell am I paying you? Quickly kill her. But the man didn't have time to finish, as the Jinchuriki applied a little force and Gato's body, unable to withstand the pressure, turned into a mash. Absolutely everyone exclaimed in shock, petrified on the spot. The mercenaries dropped their weapons and were about to run, but now they were stopped by another crowd, a crowd of residents of the Mist Village, led by a boy familiar to the shinobi. Beat them, he exclaimed, and the crowd of residents ran with pitchforks and other similar weapons at the mercenaries. They rushed in the opposite direction, where their path was blocked by the huge paws of the fox. The Nukenin, not caring about anything, jumped off the bridge into the water. They would get wet, but at least they would survive. Having checked if everyone had survived, they were not some kind of killers, the villagers rejoiced. Inari ran up to Tazuna, hugging him tightly. Both were smiling happily. Naruto left the Biju mode, becoming normal. The blonde approached the grandfather and grandson. Brother Naruto, the brunette exclaimed, now jumping with a hug at Uzumaki. He, smiling widely, also hugged the young man tightly in return. Thank you very much. Well, it's time to throw a feast here, smiled Tazuna. You've freed us from Gado's tyranny. Now we can finish building the bridge. The villagers rejoiced again. This time, Sasuke approached the blonde. Putting his hands in the pockets of his shorts, the brunette turned his head in the opposite direction from the Jinchuriki and said embarrassedly. Thank you, for saving me. Naruto, who did not expect such bright warmth from the Uchiha, smiled broadly. I'm not the only hero savior here, the blonde said, holding out his fist to Sasuke. The Uchiha looked at him in surprise and hesitantly extended his, after which they both bumped fists and grinned. Naruto. The blonde turned his gaze in the opposite direction from the brunette, seeing Sakura. Sakura-chan. The guy smiled. I saw. The girl smiled slyly. The genin's eyebrows arched in confusion. I saw your third mode, the pink-haired girl smiled, crossing her arms behind her back. Uzumaki smiled warmly in response, putting his hand on Haruno's head, which surprised her a little. So I have no choice but to show you the last one. The girl's cheeks flushed red, and her eyes then sparkled. You promised. The green-eyed girl exclaimed, taking the blonde's word. The guy laughed. Of course. The guy smiled the smile that he gave only to Sakura. No matter what time, world or place he was in, such a smile would always belong only to her. The pink-haired girl looked at the Jinchuriki in fascination for a few seconds, after which she suddenly and unexpectedly even for herself hugged the guy. Naruto also blushed, hesitantly hugging the girl. Feeling Kakashi's sly and sarcastic gaze on themselves, they both abruptly pulled away and turned away from each other. The brown-haired man's eyes gradually opened and the first thing he saw, or rather who, was Zabuza. Zabuza-san, he said quietly. Momochi immediately turned his gaze to the guy. Have you finally woken up? He smiled relaxedly. Haku looked at the missing nin with a disbelieving look. Zabuza-san. The guy turned his head slightly to the left, seeing a happy crowd of people, as well as a team of shinobi from Konoha standing out from it. The questioning look again turned to Momochi. All's well that ends well. They are not our enemies now. Gado is gone. I'll tell you everything in more detail when I get there. And now it's time for us to go, the man said, letting go of the brown-haired man and helping him up. Desetsu nodded and both gradually disappeared from sight. About a week later, the bridge was completed and received the same name as in the past, which the blonde remembered, Naruto. Having said goodbye to everyone, the shinobi returned home. There were enough questions about what happened to Naruto. Since the blonde did not know when exactly he would return to the future and whether he would return at all, he considered it necessary to tell the old man third about himself, as well as Iruka and his friends. There were many fans, mostly female, which is why Sakura snapped nervously at everyone when she saw the Jinchuriki meeting, with the fangirls. Sasuke didn't even want to think about leaving the village, which made the blonde incredibly happy. There was also complete chaos and a mini-war with Orochimaru at the Chunin exam, in which Shikamaru and the same Naruto, who had received the Chunin titles ahead of schedule, distinguished themselves greatly. Unfortunately, Naruto was again unable to save the third. And finally, the long-awaited meeting of Uzumaki with Jiraiya. At their first meeting, the Sannin clearly did not understand why a guy he didn't know was hugging him tightly with tears in his eyes. But then everything was resolved. The blonde did not want to bring back the past even more, so he was also going to travel the world with the Sannin. Perhaps this is a chance to learn much more than he knows now. The day of the blonde's departure from the village with his godfather comes. Not everyone sees the guy off, only the closest ones. Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi and Iruka arrived. We'll be back in 3 years. I don't want to distort the past even more, so I'll walk its steps again, the Jinchuriki shrugged. Everyone nodded understandingly. Then, see you later. Sasuke nodded briefly in his usual manner, his hands in his pants pockets. Kakashi smiled good-naturedly, raising his palm as a farewell. Iruka looked ahead with a terrible grimace, trying to hold back his tears, and Sakura did nothing. She just stood there, looking down sadly. Seeing this, Naruto walked up to the pink-haired girl and put his hand on her head. Sakura-chan, don't be upset. It's only 3 years, I'm not leaving forever, the guy smiled. Moreover, If something happens during the journey, the current Naruto will return, who will be about a year younger than me. The girl nodded, still looking down sadly. Hey, Naruto, what's wrong with you? Jiraiya exclaimed, somewhat frightened. What? The guy didn't understand, then looking at himself. The blonde became more transparent. Everyone was stunned and excited, and Haruno started crying, abruptly running up to the blonde. No, 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 oh, she cried, trying to grab the Jinchuriki, but the pink-haired girl's hands passed through him. Sakura-chan, quiet, calm down. The guy tried to calm Haruno down. No, the green-eyed girl continued to cry. Sakura-chan, the future me is disappearing, most likely returning to my time. But this does not mean that I am disappearing forever. The guy was saying, when I disappear, the me from this time will most likely be in my place. The girl calmed down a little, but still continued to cry. Sakura-chan, emerald eyes rose and met heavenly ones. Promise that you will take care of me in this time too. Sakura looked at the guy for a few seconds, taking in his words, and then started crying again, nodding her head frequently. Despite the fact that Naruto could no longer touch the girl, he leaned his forehead against Haruno's, then stood up and addressed Jiraiya. Perverted old man, the man hissed at the guy's boring address to his person. Promise me that you will not go on a mission to the Rain Village and will not find out anything about pain. The Sannin raised an eyebrow in confusion, but still nodded. Train me well and send me on this mission. Don't forget to tell me that in order to defeat pain, you must first destroy the one who resurrects everyone, and the main feature among all six is that their eyes are connected. The old man nodded again. And, thank you very much, for everything. And not only you, the blonde turned around, everyone. The guy smiled broadly. After which he disappeared, and in his place was 13-year-old Uzumaki Naruto. Unconscious. Flash. The blonde stands with his eyes closed. For now, he doesn't know where he is now and what is happening around him. I hope we're finally in our own time. I'm sick of watching what we've already been through, although crushing Gato and the rest of the idiots is pretty fun, Kurama said, with a satisfied face. Come on, kid, open your eyes quickly. I'm already quite interested in knowing what kind of shit we're in this time. Naruto swallowed nervously and slowly began to open his eyes. And what he saw next was confusing. Commentary on Part 8. In Japan, it is generally accepted that if a person sneezes, then someone remembers him. I didn't finish the second battle with Zabuza very logically, but my brain refuses to think, as long as it ends well. I really wanted to keep Zabuza and Haku alive. This day should be marked in red on the calendar. The last time you saw the nickname Sakura Uzumaki in the updates was May 30, 2015. And now, finally, the update has appeared. 11. And not 1, but 3. 1. Rejoice, comrades. Anyway, here's the sequel. Didn't you dry up while reading page 21? Laughing face plus a hard spoiler. I don't know why I even drew it in the group. For those who don't know, I hope I satisfied you. 3. Once again, I apologize. I was a little sad in the group and, yes, since I also love to draw, I just advise you to visit this group if you are overly curious about what might happen in other FFS next, because I can sketch it laughing face #no spoilers. I can draw some custom illustrations and characters for your fanfics if you like my work, and it's free. And also the group where I post my other drawings besides Naruto, I post under the nickname Riza, prays for forgiveness on his knees in front of all the readers. By the way, I found a picture here, let's say, quite a while ago, that perfectly suits this fanfic 0W0. Here it is, heart. Part 9. Where am I? The guy looked around in bewilderment, examining the surroundings. Changed the future so much that we ended up in a different place. Well done, guy, Kurama said sarcastically and somewhat irritated. Wait, we don't know for sure. Naruto took a few steps forward, stopping at the crossroads, and then looked around again, his eyes widening when he saw the following. A mountain with the Hokage's faces? Uzumaki exclaimed, and Kurama immediately perked up. We're in Konoha after all, Kyuubi said in disbelief. They both heard children's laughter to the right of Uzumaki and turned around. 3 kids were running towards the crossroads where Naruto was standing, cheerfully and carefree, kicking a bright, multicolored ball to each other. One of the kids kicked the ball too hard and it bounced towards the blonde. The guy picked it up, preparing to return the thing to its owner. The kids ran up to the blue-eyed guy, and their eyes and mouths suddenly opened and widened. Forgive us, please, one of them exclaimed, suddenly starting to cry, which stunned Uzumaki. Let's get out of here. exclaimed another, and the kids rushed away. What was that? The blonde asked in bewilderment, to which Kurama shrugged his shoulders in confusion. The guy looked at his hand, in which the ball remained. Uzumaki squeezed the toy in his hand tighter and moved in the direction in which the children had recently run away. Slightly quickening his pace, Naruto noticed how the door of one of the shops slammed shut. The blue-eyed man approached it and knocked. Who's there? An anxious voice was heard on the other side of the door. I wanted to return the ball that the children who were playing at the crossroads recently forgot, the Jinchuriki said. The lock clicked, and the door slowly opened, where an equally anxious woman appeared in the crack. Seeing Uzumaki, she closed the door again. No need. This ball is already quite old, you could have left it alone. Please go away, we don't need anything. The blonde man lowered his hand with the ball, hanging his head and looking ahead in confusion. The guy turned around, noticing how the doors and windows of other shops and houses also slammed shut. The Jinchuriki, dropping the ball, left it lying as it was, moving towards the center of the village. The blue-eyed man stopped near Ichiraku Ramen. Lifting the curtain, the blonde noted that there was no one in the cafe, no customers, no sellers. Where are old man Tuki and Ayame? The genin whispered. Suddenly, the curtain leading to the break room rose and Ayame was already standing in the kitchen. Without even looking at the newcomer, the girl went to the stove and took a chintz with noodles, dipping it in boiling water and slightly tossing it to turn it over. Welcome, the girl said somewhat dryly. Sit down and place your order. Ayame, hello, it's me, Naruto, the guy said with some hope in his eyes. The brunette abruptly dropped the chintz with noodles, after which the latter fell to the floor, and the girl herself abruptly turned around, finding herself with her back to the stove. Having made sure that Uzumaki himself was in front of her, Ayame abruptly grabbed the frying pan, recently washed and drying from the remaining water. Her eyebrows were drawn together. What do you want? I've already done everything, get out. Naruto raised his hands in front of him in a conciliatory gesture, taking a slight step back. I said, get out of here. The girl exclaimed, waving the frying pan, which safely flew past Uzumaki's face by a couple of centimeters. Ayame, wait, I don't understand what you're talking about. The guy exclaimed, then sat down on the floor abruptly, and the frying pan flew over his head. The girl calmed down more, leaning against the noodle counter, breathing heavily. Uzumaki was ready to swear, he saw her tears. The brunette abruptly turned away. Naruto, please, go away. Leave me and Ichiraku alone, she said and went to the break room. Uzumaki was again in a stupor. Wow, man, even I was not so much feared and hated. What could you have done? Fox said somewhat sympathetically. I don't know, the blonde answered distantly, leaving the establishment. What should I do now? Maybe go to Sasuke. As far as I remember, he did not go anywhere and did not plan to leave. And he could have stayed in his old apartment. No idea, we can't know his exact location. He's like a nomad, Kurama replied. The blue-eyed man lowered his head with sadness on his face. You're right. Moreover, even if he's here, you never know how he'll treat you. If the villagers are afraid of you and even that overly bright girl hates you, then the Uchiha might not be friends with his head at all. Remember, he's one of the strongest shinobi in the world. Then where should I go? I came back to the present and they treat me like this. Will everything be different if I leave the village? The demon reacted instantly. Don't you dare. I know how much you love this decrepit village. We'll find another way out. For starters, it would be better if we went to the Hokage. We need to find out what and how. Tsunade or Kakashi should listen to you. Naruto nodded, resolutely looking forward, at the roof of the Hokage's residence visible in the distance. Naruto knocked on the door of the Hokage's office several times, but still received no answer. Therefore, Uzumaki decided not to bother anymore and opened the door, going inside. As expected, no one. I'll wait here, the guy said, sitting down on a small sofa. After sitting like that for 2 minutes at most, the blonde abruptly stood up, starting to walk from the door to the Hokage's desk and back. Once again stopping near the desk, the guy suddenly noticed a medium-sized envelope lying right in front of the chair. The blue-eyed man looked at the letter for a long time in indecision. Nothing terrible will happen if I take a look out of the corner of my eye, right? I'm all for it. The Hokage has been gone for a long time, and this letter could be a clue to something important, Kurama agreed. The blonde swallowed and nodded. Slowly reaching out his hand to the letter, the guy also slowly took and lifted it, after which he carefully opened it. Having unfolded the paper, the Jinchuriki quickly ran his eyes over the lines, and then looked distantly out the window, lowering his hand with the letter. What is it, Naruto? Kyuubi asked. It's a leave. The fox raised his eyebrows in confusion. Shikamaru's leave. What? That smart kid. The blonde nodded. And what post did he leave and for what reason? The position is written too vaguely, but it seems to me that he was the Hokage's right hand. Kurama was not impressed. Then I am more interested in the reason. Uzumaki slowly raised the sheet of paper again. Esteemed Hokage, please forgive me, but I can't stand this anymore. It hurts me to look at what has become of you. How you treat the village and its inhabitants. I can't believe that you were once a warm ray of sunshine not only for Konoha, but for the entire country. Sorry if I offended you in any way. I ask you not to visit me. I am sure that everything will be just fine with me, as with you. You will find a more suitable and not so lazy assistant, and I will continue to watch the clouds slowly floating across the sky. Nara Shikamaru, Naruto finished. Yeah, he didn't mention who the current Hokage was. That was a big minus. But he did mention in another context that the current Hokage was, like, Kurama paused, looking at Uzumaki's reaction, a tyrant. The guy squeezed the paper, not caring that he wanted to carefully return it to its place. With his other hand, he sharply squeezed his jacket in the chest area. Hey, kid, calm down, Kurama exclaimed. We visited the Hokage, but we didn't find any leads, so it's time to visit one of your friends and find out from them what's going on here. The demon became serious. The blonde exhaled heavily a couple of times, pulling himself together. The blue-eyed man put the letter on the table, pressing it and trying to smooth it out. And then folded it and returned it to the envelope. Now the letter looked careless, but its contents were still there. I don't know if Sasuke is here, so I'll go to Sakura-chan. I can definitely trust her, no matter what world and time I'm in. Kurama agreed with the blonde, after which the guy ran out of the office. A few seconds later, the window in the office slowly opened and someone came inside. He looked at the door for a few seconds, then went to the table and took the letter with the leave. Suddenly, the paper was covered with a bluish glow, and then caught fire, turning into ash in a few seconds. The stranger turned his palm, and the ash slowly fell from it to the floor, after which someone looked at the door again. Naruto raised his hand, slightly clenched into a fist, and froze in indecision, standing in front of the door to Sakura's house. Kurama's nerves could not stand it. Knock already. I can't, the guy exclaimed, after which he abruptly stopped, hiding and looking at the door. After half a minute, when no one came out, Uzumaki exhaled relaxedly. Idiot, Kyuubi rolled his eyes. Naruto, we need to find out what time we're in. What's going on here? Why are they afraid and hating you? The Jinchuriki clenched his teeth, baring his teeth slightly. After calming down for a while, the guy raised his hand again and knocked. But no one opened the door. Uzumaki didn't give up trying, so he knocked again. And again, no one opened the door. The blue-eyed man put his forehead to the door. Sakura-chan, I know you're home. Please open up, the guy said. Silence again. Uzumaki remembered those people, the villagers, who were afraid of him and hated him. The guy's eyes were wet. I don't understand what's happening. I was in the war. I fell under the influence of the technique and ended up in the past. And now I'm back and The guy raised his head. Wet streaks of tears ran down his cheeks. They hate me again. I'm experiencing this feeling again. As if I was abandoned. No friends, no parents. Alone in the whole world, the guy pressed his hand to his eyes with the sleeve of his sweater. A creak was heard. Naruto raised his head sharply, seeing the door slightly open, and in a small crack, his girlfriend's emerald eye appeared, as well as several strands of soft pink hair. Haruno looked the guy over from head to toe, especially stopping her gaze on his eyes, reddened from tears. The guy noticed this and covered his eyes with his hand. The girl slowly opened the door completely and also slowly walked out, stopping in front of the blonde. Uzumaki looked out from behind his hand at the girl, as she suddenly abruptly and tightly hugged him, pressing her whole body against him, which not only shocked the Jinchuriki, but also embarrassed him a little. I hope you're not lying. I missed you, Sakura said, trying to hold back her tears. Naruto slowly raised his hands, going to put them on the girl's waist, but she pulled away from the blonde, returning to the apartment and beckoning him with her hand. Uzumaki stood in front of the threshold of the pink-haired girl's house for a few more seconds, delving into what was happening, and then also went into the apartment. Nothing had changed. Everything is still cozy and tidy. Only the door is new. Probably, that is the only thing that has changed in this apartment. Haruno invited the guy into the living room, meanwhile going to the kitchen and putting the kettle on. The guy comfortably settled in one of the chairs in the living room, waiting for the girl. When the green-eyed girl returned, she took the chair opposite the Jinchuriki. Tell me, she said briefly. The blonde nodded. Anyway, there was the Fourth Shinobi World War. We were fighting against Uchiha Madara, who had become the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails at the time. We almost managed to defeat him, but he used his last bit of strength to use a secret jutsu, transporting me into the past and himself into someone else's body, until he could recover. I stayed in the past from the start of the Genin exam until I left the village with Ero Sanin. And I changed the past quite a bit, but it would have been possible to return everything to its place if I hadn't suddenly become the person I'm sitting in front of you now. I mean, we had a mission, the one where we accompanied Lord Tazuna to the Land of Waves, and I became an adult when we had a rest stop. And I suddenly started disappearing when I was saying goodbye to you before leaving with Jiraiya, and then I ended up here, standing at the crossroads. The children ran away when they saw me, and their parents wouldn't let me into their shop and asked me to leave. Also, all the other windows of the houses and shops were covered, and a Yame from Ichiraku Ramen kicked me out, looking at me with great hatred. No wonder, said the girl. Uzumaki, who had been carefully examining the carpet, raised his heavenly eyes to his friend, noticing in time how the girl was wiping her eyes. She has good reasons to hate you. More precisely, you from this world. The blonde looked at Sakura with excited anticipation. You killed her father. These words sounded like a bolt from the blue for Naruto. His eyes widened, and his pupils shrank, his mouth opened slightly and a drop of sweat appeared on his temple. How? Why did I do this? The guy exclaimed, practically jumping up from his seat. Calm down, the girl exclaimed in response. The blonde sighed heavily, lowering his head. The pink-haired girl exhaled. I'll start over. As a child, you were a carefree and noisy boy who was not accepted in the village. But you began to change dramatically after graduating from the academy. You became colder towards others, and you also learned incredibly quickly. You began to spend a lot of time in the library, studying new techniques. As a result, at the age of 12, you became friends with your Kyuubi, and at 13, you learned to use the Rakudo mode. The blonde swallowed. If he learned this only at 17 in his world, then what kind of monster did he become by the same age in this world? You were talking about the Fourth Shinobi World War. It should have happened here too, but the war never started. You became Hokage ahead of schedule at 15, the youngest Hokage. At your 17th birthday, you, me and Sasuke went to the Land of Iron to sign a peace treaty between the countries and discuss further actions, but we were interrupted by Madara. He was wearing an orange mask and an Akatsuki cloak. At first he didn't introduce himself, talking about plans, but after that, it was as if a wind suddenly blew into the room. A split second later, Madara was no longer where he was sitting. He was lying on the floor, without a head, and in front of him stood you with a bloody kunai in your hand. There was silence, but it didn't last long. Haruno went to the kitchen, turned off the kettle and returned with 2 cups of tea. Then, you said that this Madara was a fake. And under the mask was Obito Uchiha, Kakashi-sensei's former teammate, as well as his rival and best friend. Naturally, the news of this shocked Sensei. Then we found his hideout, where Kabuto was also located, modified, looking like a snake, or no, a dragon. It doesn't matter. You also dealt with him, before we could even blink. In this same hideout there were several coffins. They contained notorious villains of Akatsuki, who died prematurely. Itachi was also there, so he and Sasuke were talking about something on the side. And then, as it turned out, the real Madara Uchiha was in the last coffin. He dodged your attacks well and even tried to counterattack, but he failed. Because you entered hermit mode. You had enough of a blow. You also destroyed an entire army of white Zetsu clones. And then we found ourselves in the Uchiha clan's lair, where Orochimaru was, having escaped, as strange as it may sound, from Kabuto. He had already managed to resurrect the past Hokage, so you saw your father. The girl swallowed, a tear running down her pale cheek. And you killed him. The blonde's heart began to beat faster. With great hatred in your eyes, you said that you were doing it for revenge. Because the fourth sealed Kurama in you and you suffered. Suffered because of the villagers who were afraid of you. That's exactly why you killed Tsuki-san from Ichiraku Ramen when you were 12. You came to the cafe in a bad mood. You didn't say what you wanted to eat, and Mr. Tsuki made you noodles to your taste. You didn't like it and you. The guy grabbed the jacket near the heart and a tear also ran down his cheek. He was breathing in panic, squeezing the jacket tighter and tighter, helping with his other hand. Sakura stood up abruptly and ran up to the blue-eyed man, hugging him tightly. Sakura-chan, you better tell me right away what's wrong with Sasuke. The girl shook her head negatively, pressing her cheek to the exposed part of the blonde's neck and squeezing him even tighter in her arms. Sakura-chan. The pink-haired girl instantly relaxed her grip and quietly whispered in the guy's ear. He too is gone. The blonde abruptly held back the piercing scream inside himself, continuing to try to control himself. Did I kill him? During sparring, the girl also quietly said, unable to bear it and starting to sob, burying her face in the guy's shoulder. Naruto couldn't stand it, also hugging Sakura tightly and clenching his teeth to at least hold back a cry from the pain of loss. After some time, both calmed down. Naruto also learned that in this world he tried to force Sakura to marry him and for each refusal of the girl, he broke her hand. Haruno refused only twice. Naruto broke both her hands, left and right. The pink-haired girl also said that the Uzumaki from this world would have to visit her today to be rejected again, as the girl herself said. That's why she cried a lot, hugging her hands, which she had recently healed. And what will happen if you agree to marry? Ahem. Me. The blonde asked after thinking for a second. Hellish life. And I won't be able to get rid of you, forgive me. And if you. The blonde didn't let him finish speaking because of an unexpected explosion that occurred from the entrance to the apartment. Both the guy and the girl stood up abruptly, and only a few seconds later the blue-eyed man was able to feel the most powerful chakra. He had never felt such a volume of power before, so the Jinchuriki began to be seriously afraid. Yes, Naruto Uzumaki himself. Afraid. The guy entered the apartment, not paying attention to the dust from the destroyed wall. Walking a little forward, he noticed another hole, also in the wall, also made by him. Naruto, with Sakura in his arms, landed on one of the lampposts, then turned to the girl's house. A white cloak with fiery red flames on the hem appeared in the hole in the wall. The blonde's eyes widened even more when the man in the cloak appeared completely. His blue eyes looked straight at Uzumaki with cold fury. The pink-haired girl, noticing the blue-eyed man, said, "Run." The Jinchuriki looked at Haruno in surprise. Run. Uzumaki, without wasting a second, jerked forward, constantly increasing the pace of speed. I don't understand why you run. If he is me, then we could talk to him. You're jumping to conclusions, the green-eyed girl interrupted the guy. He may look like you, but his character will clearly be billions of times worse than yours. You know that. The blonde slightly narrowed his eyes, nodding. God knows what will happen if you ever meet. You are the same person, just from different worlds. And anyway, neither you nor I will be able to speed up as much as he can. We will never break away from him. But I have already run about a kilometer. And he stands and counts the seconds until the start of his dash. He can't be that fast. And, as if refuting the words of the shinobi, the one Sakura fears so much ran past at the speed of sound. And Naruto himself. Half of the roof of the house was gone. Naruto stopped, trying to hide his eyes and cough out the dust, which Haruno was doing too. A moment later, a blonde figure appeared on the roof in the clouds of dust and smoke. He slowly walked out of this tuber, stopping and putting his hands in his pants pockets. The guy grinned. Running away is not good, Sakura, he said. The girl was afraid to even look in the direction of this monster, pressing herself against Uzumaki's chest. How interesting. The first time I thought I was wrong, but now I'm completely sure, the guy said, looking at Naruto. You are me, and I am you. Although, comparing our powers, you can be called a very bad imitator. Fuck you. The blonde snapped and suddenly felt Sakura squeeze his jacket on the back. Oh, brave man, commendable, the blue-eyed smirked. Naruto began to hiss quietly in anger. How could he become like this? A damn heartless freak who not only killed his best friend without regret, but also his already dead father. Forced the love of his life to marry him, each time breaking her fragile bones for refusing. He promised to always protect her. What's wrong with that idiot? Uzumaki would never have thought that he could change so much if he gained such power. Is he really godlike? The aura emanating from the blonde opposite him. The most powerful he had ever felt. But it was also the aura of the cruelest person, if not a monster, that the blue-eyed man could ever feel. Why? The Jinchuriki asked quietly, lowering his head. Haruno slowly widened her eyes, seeing the devastated look in his blue eyes. Those same eyes that had recently become her ray of light, that had given her strength, that had given her hope. And that same ray of light was now slowly fading. Naruto. No, a drop of tears ran down the girl's cheek, which she did not pay due attention to. The guy opposite grinned with a proud expression on his face. It's time to stop making fun of trash like you and finish you off already, he said, taking a slow step forward, then also slowly advancing on Uzumaki and Haruno. In this world, in this time period, in this place, there should be one Naruto Uzumaki. Don't you think so? The blonde continued, taking his right hand out of his pants pocket. We've already met. What do you think is happening in the time loop now? The blue-eyed man asked, slightly squinting, then straining his outstretched hand. Uzumaki carefully took Haruno's hand and slowly led the girl behind his back. Both looked at the approaching guy with excitement and great tension. Ha, really? No ideas? Do you want me to give you a hint? The blue-eyed man was half a meter away from his partners when he bared his teeth and abruptly stuck his right hand into his double stomach with a hammer. Sakura screamed. Naruto exhaled with a painful groan, grabbing the blonde's hand opposite and spitting out a large amount of blood. Unexpectedly, the seal on the wounded man's stomach began to appear, after which it slowly spiraled towards its beginning. The Hokage's fingers were burning with blue chakra flame. What the hell? I can't move a finger. The Hokage grinned and, as if reading the thoughts of his double, said ironically. And you thought it was that simple? Even though you are from another world, you are me, and I am you. So I know perfectly well that you don't care how injured you are and how much blood you have lost, because you always take care of yourself last. Your main task now is to destroy me and save your precious Sakura-cha and tilde. That's why I put a paralysis seal of my own making. Otherwise, you would have easily broken free. In response, the Hokage received only a furious look from Blue Eyes. The blonde noticed the movement behind the double and grabbed the pink-haired girl with his other hand, who screamed in surprise. She looked at the blue-eyed man in fear, clinging to his double. But nothing can be hidden from the eyes opposite. A green glow. She is healing him, while the guy is trying to bring the blonde to half-death. Although, considering his paralysis at the moment, the Hokage is doing pretty well. He abruptly threw the girl aside, leaving a pretty painful bruise on her arm. Good thing he didn't break it. Having scanned the pink-haired girl with a furious gaze that burned to the depths of her soul, the guy turned his attention back to Uzumaki. The seal opened. In principle, the blue-eyed one has been feeling a surge of strength from the red chakra for 2 minutes now. But he also feels that his double has almost none left. Boring. He is so weak in the parallel world. It just doesn't fit in my head. And what did Sakura see in this Hokage breed? He doesn't even have the abilities of a genin. Sheer disappointment. The Jinchuriki in his dying state grabbed his double's hand even tighter and tried with all his might to pull it out of himself, which only made the blonde laugh. So uninteresting. The Hokage pulled his hand out of the blue-eyed one on his own. There was just a little bit left before the entire volume of chakra was exhausted. Naruto grinned, looking at the double. I've never seen myself in such a state. MDAAA, Uzumaki drawled, looking at the blonde with pity. You're pathetic. I think it's time to end this show. The Jinchuriki's hand rose above his head, lit up with a blue glow of chakra. The blonde, on the contrary, did not stop burning the Hokage with a look full of hatred, breathing heavily and holding his stomach, did not even blink, closely watching the double's hand, which began to inevitably fall. A sharp movement from the side. A light gust of wind created by this movement. A fuzzy pink spot, fleetingly flying before the eyes of the genin losing consciousness. Then the image of a kiss that brings the Jinchuriki back to consciousness, and the Hokage, on the contrary, knocks him off track and he even forgets what he wanted to do. Haruno hugged the guy tightly around the neck, passionately biting her lips into his. The guy's hand involuntarily slowly began to lower. A quick movement caught in the corner of Uzumaki's eye, and he already forgets that his beloved kissed him. He roughly grabs her hand and pulls her away from himself, not even deigning to look at her. Naruto ran away. Sakura was distracting him. The blonde returned his frightening composure to his face, burning his gaze into the place where his double had recently been. I'll deal with you later. The girl's emerald eyes widened in shock, and the pink-haired girl felt terrible tension, excitement and fear, slowly lowering her head and staring blankly at the concrete roof. Naruto stood up, starting to walk along the roof, first one way, then the other, abruptly stopping a little further than Sakura. Here. The blonde slowly raised his right foot and stomped it sharply. The roof cracked badly in this place and began to collapse along with the shinobi. Both fell onto the first floor of the house. Apparently, the owner was either absent from the building, or not at all, since, looking at the furniture, a thick layer of ingrained dust was visible. Sakura hissed, assuming a sitting position and grabbing her right shoulder, on which she fell, flying 2 or 3 floors from the roof. Naruto looked as if he had been standing in the place where he was now all this time. I felt that Naruto's chakra, albeit weak at the moment, and immediately tried to finish him off by just stomping. Damn, I hope he's okay. But if Uzumaki finds his double, he'll be in trouble. There was already a huge difference in strength, and now Naruto is also injured. What should I do? Sakura looked up cautiously at the Hokage. He was scanning the building they were in with a cold gaze, looking for the injured Jinchuriki. The guy turned sharply and took 2 steps forward, then slowly raised his head. Naruto was carefully keeping in the hole made by the Hokage between the 2nd and 3rd floors. Sakura, perplexed, began to look for the reason for the blue-eyed man's quick finding of the hiding place, because he was far enough from the Hokage for the latter to be able to sense the Jinchuriki's weak chakra. Emerald eyes dropped to the floor. Of course, the pink-haired girl thought with realization and even more excitement. Naruto is wounded. That monster was following his blood. Suddenly, Haruno's worried look became a little softer, and then her eyes began to widen. The blood is no longer dripping from above. Naruto is in no position to cover the current wound with his hand or anything else. And that means only one thing. The Naruto that is now hanging above is just a clone. Sakura breathed out in relief and quietly, imperceptibly for the Hokage, stretching her lips into a slight smile. It seems like he hasn't figured it out yet, the girl thought, looking at Uzumaki. The Hokage raised his hand up, instantly creating a small resin shuriken, and then throwing it straight at Naruto's clone, hitting the target and evaporating the technique. The blonde's blue eyes widened in shock, but after just a few seconds they returned to normal. Even if he had fooled Uzumaki, he still couldn't win. Naruto was sitting in a dark corner of the destroyed storage room and trying to gather some natural chakra. Kurama was also currently gathering chakra to regenerate the wound on the blonde's stomach. The bleeding seemed to have stopped. Judging by the sound, he already found my clone and tried to eliminate him. But I don't know which of us took the bait. Either he really thought that the original was upstairs, or he did it on purpose so that the real me would relax at the moment, while he attacked. Hell no. It became too quiet. The blonde was wary, but did not move, continuing to gather chakra. Was he imagining it from excitement, or was there really a sound nearby, similar to a swirl of chakra, like in the rasengan? Wait, what? Naruto abruptly stopped gathering chakra, also abruptly opening his eyes. The sound was really nearby, right to the left of Uzumaki. The latter, barely breathing, slowly turned his head to the left, seeing the shining shade of blue chakra from the rasengan and the evilly grinning face of the Hokage. Boo. The head of the village sharply hits the rasengan right in the place where the Jinchuriki had just been sitting. Fortunately he managed to jump away. Dust rose in the building. Sakura tried to cough and brush off the dust to understand what had happened. In principle, only one thing was clear. Naruto found his wounded double. The Hokage threw his cloak behind his back, thereby dispersing the dust from the explosion. The same rasengan suddenly appeared in front of him and the guy dodged, quickly jumping back. Noise from above. The blue-eyed man puts his hand up and shoots something like a beam of chakra from it. Red. The other Uzumaki widened his eyes in shock and instantly created a clone, which helped him turn in the air. But just as the blonde was about to attack, the Hokage teleported into the space above the Jinchuriki. I see. Still managed to enter hermit mode, the damn trash. The Hokage thought and, taking the left sleeve of his blue sweater with his right hand, abruptly tore it off, exposing his pumped-up arm with a black seal resembling a fox. What the hell is this? The guy, who didn't understand anything, perked up even more. The guy took out a kunai, receiving an ironic grin in response. Believe me, this crap won't help you with what I'm going to do. The Jinchuriki frowned and threw the kunai at the wall opposite Sakura, surprising her and making her turn around. The blue-eyed man, with the help of a fishing line attached to the kunai, suddenly appeared next to the pink-haired girl, grabbing her by the waist and jumping out of the broken window of the house. That strange seal was too alarming for him. Considering the enormous power of the double, it is better to stay away. Naruto. The blue-eyed man seemed to come out of a trance, turning his attention to the girl in his arms. Run. To Ino. But what can she do too? We need to get to Ino, Naruto. Now, seeing the panic in Haruno's eyes, the blue-eyed man decided not to test anyone's nerves and just listen to what the girl was saying. A minute after talking to Sakura, both were already near the blonde's house. Haruno practically jumped out of her partner's arms, running up to her friend's door and pounding on it in a panic. Yamanaka didn't keep him waiting and froze in front of the open door with horror in her eyes. The pink-haired girl grabbed the girl by the shoulders. Create an interdimensional transfer of the mind. Ino's eyes widened incredibly. Rather than from her friend's request, but from who she saw behind her. The blonde swallowed. Sakura, ah. Ino, there's no time, I'll explain later. Yamanaka nodded obediently and tensely, which calmed the medic down a little. Are you saying that you should use the technique on him? The girl pointed at the latter with a trembling fingernail, unnoticed by the guy, looking worriedly at her friend. Exactly. Please hurry. The blonde ran up to Uzumaki, after which she grabbed the guy's head from both sides with her thumbs and index fingers. The latter looked at the blonde with incomprehension, then at Haruno. Sakura-chan, what's going on? Naruto. The girl fell silent, biting her lip, after which she approached the shinobi. You have to go back to your world. Hearing this, Ino, not really distracted from her mission, raised an eyebrow in surprise. What were you thinking? You want me to escape, and you to be left to be torn apart by this monster? The most he can do to me is break something. I'm a medic. I'll take care of myself. Really. Don't worry about me, the girl said, smiling reassuringly. How can I? Sakura, Ino said, moving away from the guy. Naruto looked at himself. He was disappearing, almost transparent. No. Haruno approached the blonde. Really, everything will be fine. Believe me, it will be better if each of the existing Narutos remains in their own world. Even if something went wrong while you were in the past, now everything will be as it should be. No, Sakura-chan, please. Naruto panicked and tried to grab Sakura with his translucent hands. Haruno approached the guy and leaned towards his ear. I love you. The Jinchuriki's eyes widened sharply, and his pupils began to tremble. Uzumaki swallowed, biting his lower lip until it bled. A tear rolled down his cheek unconsciously. What are you planning? Was heard from the side, forcing everyone to turn around. It was the Hokage, and next to him was a huge nine-tailed fox. What the hell? Yamanaka said in confusion, looking with panic from the Hokage to the Kyuubi to the disappearing blonde. He almost disappeared. Thank God, the pink-haired girl thought. The Hokage raised his hand with fury in his eyes. The nine tails raised its head and opened its mouth, pointing the tips of its tails towards the center. Bubbles of blue and red chakra appeared, which not so slowly formed a huge tail bomb. Naruto looked at Sakura and Ino in fear, shaking his head from side to side in panic. No, 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 no. A shot. Light illuminating everything in the area. A loud and annoying ringing in the ears. Everything around was snow white. I died, the guy thought, slowly opening his eyes. What happened? I don't remember anything. A picture of the tailed bomb exploding suddenly appeared in his head. The Jinchuriki's eyes opened abruptly and he also stood up abruptly, shouting. Sakura-chan. The Uzumaki, breathing heavily, stared at a point in front of him. A ruined landscape and about 3 dead shinobi on it. Naruto came from the side. The guy turned around abruptly and Haruno's face appeared in front of him. Sakura-chan. Tears suddenly started flowing from the girl's eyes. She sniffled and, closing her eyes, threw herself on her partner's neck. Naruto, is it really you? I'm so glad you're okay. I was so worried, baka. Sakura-chan, alive, right here, hugging him. Tears started flowing from Naruto's eyes again. He hugged the pink-haired girl tightly in response. Footsteps were heard from the side. The blonde opened his eyes slightly, raising his gaze a little higher. Ino. Someone else approached. Kiba. Wow, Naruto, you really made us worry, Inuzuka said with a sly smile. At that moment, everyone else approached. Guys. Sakura pulled away. Ha, are you crying? The dog owner asked, narrowing his eyes slyly. Uzumaki wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his sweater. You know, we could use some help, came from behind the blonde. He turned around abruptly. Kakashi-sensei, the blonde exclaimed, looking slightly to the side. And Sasuke. Shut up and help us. You'll remember names later. Uchiha was indignant, chopping off the head of the Zetsu clone. I like you better like this, Sasuke raised an eyebrow in bewilderment. The Jinchuruki smiled, rising from the ground and tying his head protector tighter. Clenching his right hand into a fist and hitting it into the palm of his left, the guy looked at Madara with a determined look, who had returned to his body. I'm back, and I'll kick your ass for sending me to the past, you damn bastard. The future I saw after, the guy said, closing his eyes for a second. I won't let that happen. You try, Uchiha grinned. Team 7 looked at each other and nodded, as always, without words, understanding what needed to be done. Step forward, dash. Simply sealing Madara is not enough. So, he needs to be destroyed, the blonde thought, drawing his eyebrows together, looking at his opponent with hatred. An image of Sakura from that world appeared in his head. Her smiling face and soft lips, pronouncing those cherished 3 words, I will avenge you, Sakura-chan. Comment to Part 9. That very spoiler I was talking about. Wall -81,894,600_280. Yes, it's for this chapter, 3. And it's the last one. Yeah, I didn't expect to finish this FF, I thought I could stretch out the idea that arose, but something went wrong. It's very sad to part with my favorite work, but I'm planning a part 2. Honestly, I was just thinking about the second part, but what will be in it still remains a mystery even for me. The idea arose to describe in this part what would have happened if Naruto had acted differently in the past. How exactly, I don't know yet. 0. In general, write your opinion, I will definitely take it into account. Heart.